Oh, hello, and welcome to Pete Thorn Sunday Live number 422. I've been here for years now. At one point I looked like this. And now look at me, here I am. Still doing the same stuff. That was the whole point of this cover, by the way. Still doing the same thing. Still that guy. Nothing's changed. And that's all right. I'm good with that, I guess. This is the life we have chosen. Look what I found, an old Chris Cornell era guitar pick. It says peterthorn.com on one side, and then Chris's signature on the other side. I still have bags of these. You see them pop up on eBay. People sell these on eBay. Amazing. That's cool, I guess. Chris Cornell guitar pick. Just happened to have my name on the other side. Probably be worth more without my name on it, to be honest. Yeah, probably definitely. Probably definitely. I'm going to go with probably definitely. Should treat it with more respect, I suppose. What else we got here? We got an Eddie Van Halen pick. I like these sometimes. They're really good for actually playing Van Halen. You know, the 60 gauge nylon. You wouldn't think, right? But they're actually really good because you can really tack the hell out of the string. Good for the attacky stuff. I hate this chain because it's got this massive, I'm sure they thought this would be cool, we'll make the clasp massive, but it always ends up down here. So when you spot it in videos, I got to get a new one. When you spot it in videos and there's this massive distraction right here, it's supposed to be up there. But if it was smaller, you wouldn't notice it. If it was slipped around. Anyway, I'll get another one of these days. I'm so ADHD right now. I'm all over the map. Let's go back to guitar picks. There's a Sativai one. Love those. I love buying, when I go to Japan, like tons of guitar picks and bringing them back. And I've got a bag now somewhere that I've misplaced. I think it's probably in my backpack somewhere that I got from the last trip. I don't know if I have any in here. They're kind of this shape, but it's not this. I love the Paul Gilbert picks, the pointy ones, but sort of full size on this end. And then they come to more of a point. They're really, really nice for playing fast, articulate stuff, which makes sense when you think about Paul and his style. It's not what I use on the day-to-day, you know. I used to use these. It's like a Jazz 3 size, right? The little guys, which are great for articulate stuff, but not so great for, like, you know, rhythm guitar, and you know, you want a little give in the pick sometimes. It's funny because we were doing it on the Sativai tour. We're doing an encore. We're on the side of the stage, and Joe says to me, "I don't have a pick." Damn, he goes, "Can I take one of yours?" And I go, "Yeah." And I give him one of my picks, and then he runs out and starts playing a song. And after the gig, he goes, "That pick messed me up." I was like, "What do you mean?" It's just like a 73 gauge, like normal shaped pick. But Joe's very specific about things. The things that he likes, the way his guitars are set up, his sound. He's very, very, very specific. And he took an issue with my pick. He had issue with my pick. It's funny. I was like, what? It's a pretty standard sort of, which is why I use it, because it's like a real jack of all trades kind of guitar pick. It's a 73 Ultex, and I can play. I explained to him, I said, well, the reason I use them is because I'm like out there strumming acoustic guitar on If I Could Fly, and on the, you know, playing like Flying in a Blue Dream and stuff like that, like doing the nylon string part, and a normal size pick that's not super thick, you know, it's got a little bit of give, and you can strum parts with it. You can play, you know, it's just a good jack of all trades pick. That's why I use it, because it's like, you know, it'll do a bunch of different stuff. So, okay, sorry, that was like all over the map little intro there, but what else is new, right? I guess I probably like that all the time. What happened this week? I went to Rush. It was awesome. I just put up a video on my Instagram of, just show you now. Why don't I? Ooh. I don't know where my phone went. Leave it. I probably left it out in the other room. Well, that's good, because it won't distract me then. So I'm not going to play that video, but you can watch it on my Instagram. Go to my account there. Subscribe if you haven't. But it was one of my favorite videos. I took of the whole show in Toronto, and it's not even of the band. It's of my buddy Wayne and a bunch of dudes that were behind us that he made fast friends with, and they're all just like having the best time while they're playing YYZ. So YYZ in YYZ, it's pretty cool. Yeah, and they're just rocking out and singing the riff and stuff like that, and all dancing around like it's a football game or something. Wayne had such a good time he came over from England to see the show with his friend Gary, and they had fun. So, all right, let's see some of what you guys are talking about here in the chat, and then we can talk more about Rush and stuff like that. I got all kinds of thoughts about it. It was awesome. It was a joyous celebration of music. Really, really good. Yeah. Okay. I saw a guy carrying a large EVH box down the street this week. It was not a guitar amp box shape. I wonder what it was. What else do they make? Guitars, amps, pickups. Maybe it was a box full of like 800 pickups. I had opportunity to try your SSH signature without the Floyd. I was surprised how much I like the neck. I usually go for 50s Les Paul style neck carves. Well, it's not really that far off. I mean, it's from a legit 50s sort of Les Paul shape in the sense that it's got a soft V, which a lot of them did. And by V, I don't, a lot of people think V, they think there's this hard V. It's a soft, general sort of like a little less shoulder, which, the early to mid 50s Les Pauls had that, a lot of them. My old 54 did. The new one I have, not as much, but it's a great shape. It's just got a little more shoulder. When I say new, it is not new, but it's an early 53. But yeah, so there'd be probably it's not a thin super strat shredder neck really. It's more of it's real similar to my 64 Strat, to be honest. So that's not far off from that. Yeah. And I'm glad you tried the guitar. Thanks for doing that. Earls there says, enjoyed your demo of the new H9. I have an H90, wondering if the new H9 is anything new and juicy. Smaller footprint and better interface are the main advantages, and it has all the algorithms in there, and will let you just kind of like do everything you can do with an H90, but with the one pedal. Some people probably just don't need the full-blown two processor, thing. A lot of people in H9 is more than, there's a lot you can do in one of those things with just the space-time algorithm, for a delay and a reverb. You just need like a little bit of stuff for your sound. You don't need like in other words, it'll do a little bit of the multiple effects stuff with those simple algorithms. So I say simple, it's still even tight. It's a little confusing, but I make that joke, but they definitely improved the user interface so that it's most things you can now do, I would say, without needing to crack a manual or whatever, and if you do need to crack a manual, you'll go, oh, that's how you do it, and then you'll probably remember it's not really that hard to do anything on it. That there's still going to be some things that are complicated. I find some things about, like, even in space-time, like the way that it works, it made sense to whoever, designed the algorithms, but to me it's a little nutty. The way that, one knob will control mix from 0 to 100 from like all the way down to halfway. And then up from there, it does something else. It's like, what? Like, it's like, if you've got one and you've tried it, you know what I mean. And then like, even just the parameters in like Black Hole, I still don't understand. I just know when it sounds good, and I'm like, well, store that. That sounds good right there. But there's things like gravity versus size. Like, I don't really understand. The gravity seems to control the size as well as the size. So they do things in a confusing way that I think they'd almost have to clean the slate as far as like design completely different, from the ground up, what they call things. My phone's right there. That's so me. My phone was just sitting under the guitar pick box. And it lit up. All right. I want to show you the Rush video real quick anyway, just because I thought it was endearing. Oh, the thumbnail I put up today for this video is me beside the legendary Rush rotisserie chickens, which those were on stage with them over some tours in the the 2000s. So that was pretty cool. Uh, yeah, I got to go back after in Toronto and didn't see the Alex and Getty, but I got to meet up with Lauren, my old buddy, and that was really nice to see him for a minute. Take a picture by the Rush sign, and we're both wearing the same damn shirt. I was like, "Have you got on the same shirt as me?" He does. So that was funny. He's having the time of his life, of course, up there just killing it on the nightly basis. And here's the video that I really enjoyed. I'll just show you real quick. So, uh, so that was the vibe in the room. It was also a blast to hang out with uh, my buddy Kim Mitchell, who came to the show with me, which was great. He was a pleasure to hang out with, and Kim is like a Canadian rock icon. I had a ticket for the show, and I thought I'm gonna ask Kim if he wants to go, and he'll probably say no because he's probably already going, and he wasn't actually, and he said, "Yeah, sure, I'll go with you." He had a gig the next day, so he had to leave before the end because he had to get up and go fairly early in the morning to get to his show in somewhere up in northern Ontario. But for those out there that know the Rush history, of course, Kim was in a band called Max Webster, iconic, legendary Canadian band in the '70s that toured a lot with Rush over the years and even recorded with Rush. They did a song in the studio together, the legendary Battle Scar. If you've never heard Battle Scar by Max Webster, listen to it after. Write it down right now. Battle Scar, Max Webster. It's both bands in the studio playing at the same time together, Max Webster and Rush. And Getty and Kim share co-lead vocal duty on that, so it's amazing. But he really enjoyed it. We had a great time hanging together, and he's a terrific guy. So it was a blast. Just a great time was had by all. All right, I'm going to go down in the chat because now I've been gabbing for a while. And let's see. I'll just start taking some random ones here. How long did it take you to come up with the intro songs for your pedal demos? It's usually very fast, because the trick is that I'm not. I know I'm making a video for a product, but I don't think about that. I just plug in the pedal and find a sound that kind of where I go, ooh, that's fun, and then put your hands on the guitar and start playing something. And then the trick is not to edit yourself too much, it's just to because a sound can definitely inspire a part, a certain delay time is going to inspire you to play at a certain tempo, and maybe you'll find a certain sequence of 4 or 5 notes that just sound really good. There it is, it's that simple really. So generally speaking, it doesn't take me very long at all to at least get the seed of an idea. And then the phone has been the key, by the way, to, the recording, the recorder app on the phone. If you go in my voice memos, there's my voice memos. I'll show you. I have thousands of voice memos that are generally speaking all musical ideas over the years, ever since they started doing this voice app. Yeah, I can just keep going. Every single one of those. Sometimes they're reminders, but most of these are going to be the seeds of ideas. A lot of these are for pedal demos. Look at them all. They can still keep going. We could pick any random one. It might be something embarrassing. That only goes back to 2021, however much I just scrolled. So it probably goes all the way back to 2015 or something like that, whenever, I started figuring this out, that I could use this to do these things. So the trick is just to keep that by you at all times. And then when you remember something, I want just remembered a voice memo I took yesterday. I want to play it so bad, but I'm not going to. I took a memo on the airplane I was on, the first plane coming back from Toronto to Chicago, and then I had a connection to Chicago. And okay, I'll just tell you, I'm going to divert here just for a second because I'm ADHD today, like I said. And the first thing was there was a kid on the flight in the row behind me. Luckily not in the direct seat behind me because we might not be here right now. I'd probably be in jail. but this kid was behind the poor woman that was sitting beside me, and this kid had no regulation over emotions. And I feel really bad for the kid actually, and I of course feel bad for the mom. And then I'm also can be many things at once. I'm also really critical of the parenting, and but also just wondering if it was a behavioral, like something was off. Like it was like I don't know what is involved here other than therapy needed or something. But this kid was screaming at the top of their lungs that they couldn't go on YouTube because there was no internet on the plane. And then they're really like slamming the tray table down. And then, the drinks came and a drink came and the kid knocked the drink all over herself and got all wet and then was screaming about that. I'm all wet now. And it was just like this nightmare, like one thing after another. It was for about an hour and 40 minutes because the flight's not very long. It felt like 12 hours. But anyway, the emotional regulation was like not there at all. And in that moment, I was really glad I'm not a parent. Sorry, I know most of you out there probably have kids. But yeah, it was gnarly. But I was also fascinated by the it's like wow, like the whole like there's no internet on this plane. There's no YouTube. I can't watch YouTube. Which I kind of like. I should use it as an ad. Actually, I should take it and put it into maybe make it the like the intro for the show or something like that. Make one of those songs about it. Anyway, it was crazy. And then I got on the second plane, and the guy was kind of that was sitting beside me. I was in the aisle seat, and there was a guy in the middle, and then somebody in the window. And the guy sitting beside me just came later. I was already sitting there, so I'm sitting there, and I'm just hanging out. And I'm not like I keep to my space in my seat, and I'm one that thinks that we can both use the armrest if we're in a. But some people just get in there and. You know what I mean? Do that thing. And he was in the middle seat, and he was one of those guys that's convinced. So here's my question. Take a little poll here. Is there this thing where if you're in the middle, you get both armrests? Because I say no. I say you're in the middle, and it's just like you picked a middle seat, and maybe if maybe you shouldn't have picked a middle seat. Like you should have paid the $25 or whatever they make you to get the aisle or the window in advance or whatever, and not taking the middle. If you're like 6'1" and kind of big, and you know what I mean, it's like I'm 6 feet and like I'm always making sure I've got exit row or it's a window. I haven't sat in a middle seat in I don't know 20 years because I just make sure I'm not in the middle. I do all the things I got to do. It means if I got to pay extra, I do it. Anyway, this guy sat down and just did the, and I was like. I'm not that guy where I'm just gonna. So I just kind of, I'd be uncomfortable. Two men with their arms like, and I'm like, I'm just gonna keep my arm here for the next 2 hours if I have to, whatever. And we're just gonna be like intimate. I don't care. It's the principle. And so eventually he's the one that broke first because I thought it was kind of funny after a while. But he's like, hey man, he's like, it's my armrest or whatever. And I was like. No, dude, it's not your armrest. I was like, it's our armrest. I was like, I'm happy to share with you. I can take the front. You can take. Well, no, man. When you're in the middle, I get the, And he was older. He was probably like 60. I was like, yeah, that's not a thing, So I'll tell you what, we'll share. And he's like, well, just don't shove into me. Don't push. And I was like, well, you too. And he's like, well, don't shove. You too. Sound good? Are we good? Okay. It was one of those. And then at that moment, I was like. I just don't like doing this, like the whole, the flying as you get older and older. It's like if I never had to fly again, I wouldn't. It's like I love the tour bus. I'm fine with that mode of travel. Flying is just. Ugh. And then the other thing that somebody did. Sorry, I almost done my bitch fest, but I just got to talk to somebody about this because I haven't spoken to anybody about it. The other one was, don't touch my bag. Ask me to move it. Like, the whole, like, people usually do, hey, whose backpack is this or whose suitcase is this up here? Is it okay if I move it over here just because then I can fit these things, right? And at some point I got up and realized, like, my backpack's not where I left it in the overhead bin. There's this other thing about, like, backpacks and, like, they don't belong in the overhead bin. It's like, if that's my carry-on, I don't have to put it under the seat, I can put it up there because it's a carry-on. And it's my carry-on. That's my carry-on. So I'm going to put it up there. Somebody had moved it. And it was across the aisle and like behind stuff. Somebody's just, you don't like pick up somebody's stuff and then move it somewhere else where they won't even, I just started looking through the overheads because I needed something out of it. I'm like, who stole my freaking backpack? Anyway, all that happened yesterday. So travel's weird now, but it's a whole thing, you know. It wasn't fun. Luckily, the flights were all on time yesterday. Travel was easy. I will say there's a great train to and from Peterson. That was terrific. The airport in Toronto. That was really nice. You know, it's like LA really needs a better scene for getting to and from the airport. It's rough. Okay, so all right, let's talk about guitar stuff now. But thanks for listening to my bitch fest. I really appreciate it. Pete, did you hear Blues Saraceno shout you out on Tone Talk? I didn't. I haven't watched that one because I've just been, seeing friends, vacation mode and stuff. So I've been doing not a lot of like being online and stuff like that. But that's really nice. I'll watch that one. He's a great guy. Blues was an influence. I mean, I remember he's about my age, so maybe a year older than me, so it's like when I was still in Canada and stuff, he was really like inspiring to me. Him and Richie Kotzen and stuff, because he's not really that much older than me, those guys. Just a couple years, if anything. And blues always, like, his phrasing and his cool, like, he kind of always had a cleaner tone than a lot of guys. Not so much distortion, cleaner, drier, always really good guitar sound. He has great ear for cool guitar sounds. And his note choices and everything, just really cool. Like, he's kind of, there's a similarity to, they don't play the same, but like Warren DeMartini, in phrasing. He always had great phrasing choices, just cool parts. And I really gravitated towards that thing that both Warren and blues kind of had. That, I guess there is a similarity, like cool blues-based rock guitar phrasing stuff, And he's gone on to have a terrific career, and now I see him quite a bit. He's around, and I see him quite often. I always really enjoy seeing him. So, but anyway, that's nice to hear. He gave me a little shout out. That's very cool. Okay, let's see what else we got here. I'm just gonna change my screen here a little bit so that I can read the comments a little better. Great to see Wayne in that video. Yeah, of course, Wayne's the bass player, the guy that you just, if you were watching the little video, the crowd having fun, Wayne's in there having a great time. He flew over from England to enjoy the Rush show. And Wayne's a guy that really, there's no bullshit with him. And he's just a great spirit and a great musician and a terrific friend of mine. So, yeah, so much fun. Yeah. Let's see. What's Todd saying? Maple tops and electric guitars add bright high-end tone, clear note definition, and tight low-end response. I mean, I tend to think that that's true. I tend to think any all mahogany Gibson, there's a definite difference when you've got a maple top on a guitar. I think so. I definitely think so. So when we think about what the bridge is coupling with, it's the top. Like on a primarily a Les Paul, the top is quite reasonably thick at that point on a Les Paul, and those studs are going right into the maple, and the tailpiece and the bridge, if it's a Tune-o-matic or, making a lot of contact with that piece of maple, So I don't know, right? It's like one could argue maybe there's more, maple going on than there is mahogany in some ways. Obviously the guitar is resonating through with the guitar is directly connected, the bridge, the strings and everything. So, yeah. There's nothing like the bite and resonance of a good SG, bending the neck, great harmonics. Yeah, they're their own animal with their kind of like, they're of course all mahogany. But the different design somehow equates to like an all mahogany SG doesn't sound like a mahogany Explorer to me. The SG is sort of like bite and resonance. Yeah, especially it probably had something to do too with when the SG came out and the pickups kind of shifted to the early patent number and the T-tops and stuff like that, and they were kind of low wind, brighter. I love those pickups. They're some of my favorite. There's nothing like a low wind Gibson Barkey pickup from that era. They sound awesome. Some PAFs I think are a little hotter and darker sometimes that I've heard in a cool way. It's cool too. It's just a different thing, Okay, so here's one that's a hot button in today's guitar industry, the Dario AI string demo situation. Let's talk about that for a minute. Um, so I think the bigger question for me, sorry, it looks like my audio is a little hot. I'll try and not talk too loudly or back up a bit from the mic because I don't want it to clip and sound annoying. Um, I think the bigger question when I heard the video in question, I listened to it and I watched it, is like, why are we making music anyway that sounds like a computer made it? Even if it was real, which they've said now it isn't. If you can't tell, if it's so not organic that it sounds like this computerized kind of like video game, madness, what's that got to do with a string? I mean, you could use dead strings, you could use any strings, or you could use AI, or you could use, probably sampled guitar to make, you know what I mean? Like guitar, somebody on it with a keyboard and good guitar samples through, a stack of 800 plugins, like they tried to pass it off when they were saying that it wasn't AI. Um, it's so far removed from. Not that there's anything wrong with it if the music is good, I guess, and it was created by people. I hate AI, generative AI, If it's being used to help do things that, and it's not generative, where it's not, being used to do the composition or used to play the part, For example, if you use it in a, I mean, mastering engineers would hate this, but for quick and easy mastering, I like the AI, the Logic mastering tool. I'll use it sparingly on stuff. It's just analyzing the track and then EQing and compressing. It's not doing anything where it's adding parts or something. But I think that that's a pretty good, quick and easy use of it. Sorry, mastering engineers. I still would always go if I'm mastering a reel. I'll go to my mastering buddies that I know are solid and for the finished product. I'm not going to use it to put out records or anything like that. I recognize that that's probably happening though. I mean, it's definitely happening. So that sucks. But yeah, I'm very against using it for any kind of creativity. Don't want to replace human beings with it. So that's the bigger question for me with the Daddario thing. I think it's good that they came out and admitted something and didn't keep trying to say that, no, that's not what happened or whatever. And, because there's too much lying going on in the world these days. And people just blatantly lying with no, it really bothers me. People saying sorry is a big deal to me. Because we're all human and we make mistakes. So if somebody says, I'm sorry, I recognize I was wrong in this situation, I made a mistake. And, it really, we should normalize, people being honest and owning up to things and making errors and then making amends. I think that that's a really good thing, It's nothing but ego and stuff to just hold on and keep saying no. I did it. I didn't do anything wrong, or I didn't. I hate that. It's a major pet peeve of mine in people, corporations, politicians. To not be able to cop up. Like, yeah, we could do better. Of course you can. There's always a way. I mean, human beings are fallible and make mistakes and stuff like that. And how are you ever supposed to move forward? Unless you're able to say sorry and then learn from it and then not do the same thing the next time. It's just common sense psychology stuff. So, good on them for apologizing. And then just on the musical level, let's maybe move away from, because I think it'll kind of sound ridiculous maybe in another 10 years, the whole, like, that style, it's just really weird to me. I was listening the other day to like this new. Here's another controversy. That new Avenged Sevenfold. I'm not really an Avenged Sevenfold fan, but I know some of their music and what they've done in the past. But they've put out this record that evidently to their fans is incredibly. Sorry, by the way, I know there's a super chat I got to get to there, and I didn't hit, but I will hit it. I'm sorry about that. It'll be just a second. There, see, I'm apologizing. Normalize it. Anyway, this Avenged Sevenfold record, like, go listen to the new Avenged Sevenfold record. It's puzzling. It's just like I don't understand the use of the way that they're It's like cool, like take chances artistically and stuff. I support that, but it doesn't sound like a band. It doesn't sound like their band. It sounds like some producer like it doesn't I don't know. It's so confusing actually. If it's more confusing than anything. Uh did I like it musically? No, but besides that, like that there's plenty don't have to like everything, you know. Some people might like it, but I'm talking more about like the production style and these weird styles of like I'm just such a fan these days of like Jesse Wells, the guy that's like on YouTube and goes in the middle of a field in like wherever he is in Tennessee or something, and you know sings a song that he obviously just probably wrote that week with an acoustic guitar and kills it, and it's amazing. It's like the anti AI. Um, I just like people making art. So and I think we're seeing a healthy amount of it and a backlash, and uh, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I got to sneeze. Apologies. Normalize apologizing. How did you like the South Park bit at the end of the Madison Square Garden show? Awesome. The fans are far and wide, and the fan base is deep of Rush, and it's great to see plenty of talented peers and things like that to those guys that acknowledge them and appreciate them, and they're winning on such a amazing level right now. It's like somebody said the other day. I'll just read my post to you that I put up the other day because I can't articulate it better than I already did. But I will find it here for you. Uh, yeah. So somebody was saying that, and this is probably an engagement bait a little bit, this post, but sometimes I'll engage with those posts anyway, just because like I think it definitely probably definitely probably I say that a lot, but I think it is engagement bait. But my point on it, because somebody pointed out that it is, but my point was, yeah, but it's okay to respond to that sometimes if you've got a point to make. So this person said, saw their completely incredible show in Toronto last night. I'm going to say something that as a lifelong Rush fan uh is absolute beyond the pale, utterly outrageous sacrilege. Rush are better with Annika. So you see why I say it's almost rage bait. But I will not be taking questions. And I just said the whole thing's been fascinating, like this whole reunion tour and getting back together with her and deciding to go out at all and adding Lauren as well. He's a component of it, of having 4 people on stage now instead of 3. That for fans probably had to be like a bit of a what's this going to be like, at least a little bit odd. And then I just said the whole thing's been fascinating, but I don't think we can say better, than with Neil or the trio or whatever. And I said, but different and totally working smashingly well. Neil, massive part of the compositions and the spirit and the history. There would be no Rush with no Neil. And I said, what's going on? I think it's a combination that we're overjoyed to see them again. They're overjoyed to be playing. She's overjoyed to have the gig, and she's got sick chops and groove, and it's manifesting in shows full of joy being executed on a super high level. So that was my opinion about what's going on with them and why it's working so well. You never know with chemistry, the great unknown of putting a bunch of people together, and playing, and what's going to happen. Getty, even in Toronto, was introducing the song Vital Signs, and he was saying that the song kind of took on an interesting direction in life with this group of people. I like how he prefaced playing it with that. This particular group of people, the way the song feels, and as we're playing it, it's got a certain thing, and he was really enjoying that, obviously. Chemistry, it's fascinating. So, band chemistry. Yeah. Okay. Are you working on a 3rd album, please? I'm definitely thinking about it. I haven't actively got into it, but I've got plenty of time now, so it's going to happen. I'm getting excited. about getting into it. I've got a couple ideas and everything. I've got basically one song's done because there's something that I did a while ago that is finished. So I just got to do 9 more. Brett Scholl, did you hear that Daddario upgraded their Instagram post to admit they used Suno to generate the actual song in the demo? Is Brett here somewhere? I haven't seen him yet. Hey, buddy, if you're around. Appreciated your post the other day about ADHD and, ordering your contacts. I've had that stress. Rhett put up a post the other day saying that he's been reminding himself to order contact lenses for weeks or months and hasn't done it, but every day he reminds himself and then he doesn't do it. And I can totally appreciate that. So we can talk about that, Rhett, if you want to. I've got the same, I set reminders. Sometimes I've got things that remind me every week or every day to do things, and I'll still space. Although I've gotten better, I think. It's the one thing with this technology and talking to Siri and stuff that kind of helps me, where I set reminders constantly, because it is helpful to have alarms pop up on my phone and things. Otherwise, I wouldn't get anything done. I'd forget things all the time. Yeah. This is a nice take on it. It says, Smart Alex, Rush was so good, still can't believe I had the privilege to see them again. That's the way I feel. It was like, that's the way I felt when AC/DC did their show, Oasis. It did feel like a privilege. There's something about, the world's so crazy and stuff too, and everybody getting together, and like that video I just showed you where those guys are dancing around and Wayne's there with them. It's like these moments of sheer human, spirit and joy are pretty great, pretty fun. And maybe we're feeling it more as we get older, and it's just, life can be tough. It's nice to just have these moments. I started to feel it after COVID, actually, more coming back to shows and stuff, where I realized like a big part of the classic rock show is just people having fun and coming out and wanting to feel like they did when they were kids or teenagers or whatever. And we're providing a show that brings people back to that time, and that's pretty valuable service, I think. So I take it really seriously in that regard. It's also why I'm like, even down to like using real amps on stage and the show being kind of loud and stuff like that, is like, I don't want this to be a sanitized, theater show of like, a bunch of younger people interpreting classic rock and sort of making it, no, because those people are like, they can feel it. And if you just give them the thing, it transports them back. You see them light up, and it works. And it's like, lo and behold, don't change the formula of what made it so great. I could get into talking about all kinds of things right now, like limiting stage monitors and side fills, and like shows being quieter, and like no amps on stage, and all this kind of stuff. Where it's like, did you see the video of the guy on Instagram talking about that? There was a guy that made great points. He's like, do you ever wonder why like shows don't feel like they used? And he was saying, because we perfected everything, and we took away all the, fixed all the problems and everything, and now it's boring as hell. And he's kind of right. There's definitely, I've thought about that a lot. You take away the all the danger and all the quirks and things that made rock shows back in the day, and it's not the same anymore. So I like to think that we at least try and, as much as possible, give people with that band that experience, so it can transport them back in time, and they go, it's still here, this thing that I love, and it feels good, So that's part of classic rock. Big part of classic rock show to me is like to, for my part, is like, that's my point. Well, if we're going to do this and we're going to put a couple months of time into it and travel all over the place on a bus and live out of a suitcase, let's do it full on, Let's do it as full on as we can, and make people really, deliver the songs with passion, with heart, with joy, and some volume and nuts, and like the imperfections and all the good stuff, like really go for it in a way that'll transport people to that place. Yeah. I'm pretty far back in the chat, so I'll move down a sec here. But yeah, going back to 2019 there for Ian with the voice record app. He uses it as well. That's cool. It's good stuff. There's Rhett. Rhett says he saw it. Glad they shed more light on it. Yeah, I mean, shit happens, right, with Daddario, and time to move on. But also, if I was them, I would be just producing more, like and yeah, for a 7 string, down tuned whatever, or like heavy stuff, do something that sounds like Gojira or something. I don't know, like give me something that's a bit more meat on the bones, like as opposed to something that if you can't tell if it's AI or some organic cool guitar part, and I know AI can fool people these days, but you know what I mean? Like at least in a style that like sounds like strings, not something that sounds like 800 plugins, because it doesn't even matter if it was real guitar or not. I mean, strings could be new, dead from any old company. It doesn't matter if you're hiding it behind a million different things anyway, whether it's AI or not, right? So, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna move down to the chat. I'll get to that super chat there. There we go. Middle gets none. That's the armrest. That's a Steven. I don't mind. I mean, hey, you got a middle seat sucks, and I always for people that are in a middle seat on a plane, So I'm happy to share, but don't take the whole. You know what I mean? Where the arm over the whole thing on both of them, and you sit down, you kind of make your space. It's like, and I'm always like, no, we're not doing that for 4 hours. I'll share it with you. Sucks you're in the middle, but I made sure I was in the aisle. You know what I mean? It's like you either get status on airlines and maintain it, or you pay for it. You do the thing to make sure you've got the space so that you're cool. If you got in the middle, shitty, but there's a way to not get in the middle. Sometimes not if you get bumped or whatever, or you're like, you just can't afford it or whatever, but that's crazy. Give me a break, So, you don't pick the middle seat, it picks you. You get the armrest. I don't think so. That's not true, man. I'm not going with that, Tom. I mean, it's like I say, I haven't sat in the middle seat in 20 years, because I make the effort to make sure I'm not in the middle seat. I recognize sometimes you're traveling with, okay, significant other, if I was with, girlfriend or something like that, I would be like, and we had a window in the middle, I'd take the damn middle, you know what I mean? But then you're kind of like, cause you're together. So you're more like, and you don't have this armrest issue or whatever. 100%. There's reasons to sit in the middle, but as a business traveler, which I generally am, I'm usually by myself. I'm going to make sure I'm not in that friggin' middle seat, This is multiple. I knew people were going to say this, but no, I don't think so. Yeah. So no, I'm here to tell you no. So don't sit beside me if you see me on a plane. I'm real nice until I'm not. And then I'm like, sorry, that's not going to happen right now, I don't believe in that bullshit. That's just some stuff that people make up that sit in middle seats. I get both armrests. I'm in the middle. That's it's like, no, there's absolutely nothing that says that, You're in the middle and it sucks, That should be like, well, I'm in this back row of the plane, so I get the whole row, right? That's just the rules. It's like, no, it's just some shit you're making up to make your life easier that day. I swear the guy put vanilla in this. Kind of not working for me. Got coffee. I'm going to have to get another one later. Ryan Casey, switched my SSS to HSS Thornbucker 2 plus 2 V63s. Still using 275K pots and traditional wiring, so the bridge sees volume only. Okay. Somehow, I think what Sir does is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but actually I'm going to ask John just in a text here to just make sure, because I think this is what's going on. On your HSS guitars, are they wired so that the bridge sees 500K volume and the singles see 250? I'm pretty sure that's the way Sir does it. That they've got a certain, way to make sure. I'm not a fan of I like 500K on the humbuckers. I'm not a big fan of like I didn't back in the day. I mean, the way that I kind of made this decision that I didn't like it, or the realization that it wasn't for me, was on Gibsons back in the day. We were using 300K pots for a while on a lot of guitars. It's a stock thing, and I'd be like, well, this guitar sounds muddy. And I just didn't like it. And then there was these like RS wiring kits you'd get with True. And the main thing about them was these just 500K pots that you'd put in on the, in my opinion, this was the main thing about them. 500K pots for the, for the pickups. And it was like better, you know? Okay, so he replied, yeah, so on Sir guitars, John says yes, as well as the tone control. If there are three, not sure what that means, but gets the correct value as well as a capacitor. If there's only one to control, we do switch capacitor. Yeah. So in other words, they do, long story short, all pickups get loaded correctly on the tone as well. So they do, it's 250 on Sirs for the singles and 500 for the bridge, and that's done through some sort of capacitor situation that allows them, like however they wire it. And I'm sure that information is probably out there how to wire a HSS, but that's the way I like it in my guitars. Just sounds better to me. They've got a very good handle on that, like Sir on, it's like where the bridge pickup is in relation to the bridge, like the distance, the balance of the three. He's got a geometry with it all, and also the values and everything that make a lot of sense to me. The roll down with the cap resistor on the volume is, really great to me on my signature guitars, and I never feel like the value. He obviously played with that stuff and settled on values he likes, and it's always really great. So, yeah, that's where John's super on it. Yeah. That probably makes it even better because they're a little more spanky, like a true single. He did say that in the position 4, that's usually not. So like, so in other words, like on a humbucker and single, if it splits to single, well, you could call it position 2, I guess. Where the humbucker splits a single and then the other single is there. That's usually, he says, we don't bother to do it there. So that's probably seeing 500K volume. I've never found that to be an issue. It always sounds good to me anyway. Probably just a little extra hi-fi and chimey for a humbucker. That's not it's a split single sound. So anyway, whatever they got going on, I love it. So yeah. Back on the middle seats. It's their fault for getting to the airport later and having to take the middle. I mean, in my opinion, anybody getting to the airport and not picking a seat till they get there is brazen insanity. If I had to make any travel advice, it'd be, you've got an app, load it up, make sure you get your miles, that you're part of the mileage program for that airline or a connected airlines, so part of the network or whatever, and you get your miles, make that seat selection, and make sure you're sitting somewhere where you're going to want to be, which hopefully isn't randomly in front of a screaming kid that is pissed off because they can't watch YouTube. I get it. She probably wanted to watch Sunday Live, like old reruns. That gives me a whole new perspective. That's probably what it was. Yeah. Bummed out because she couldn't watch. Little did she know I was sitting right there. Anyways, what? Middle seat gets both armrests because they are stuck together in the middle seat. No, that doesn't make any sense to me. No. Middle gets both because middle sucks. No. Too bad. Like I say, I'm not one to shove somebody's arm off and take it all to myself. I'm happy to share. We can share. Somebody can have the front, somebody can have the back. There's enough room. That's what we ended up doing yesterday. Me and Mister, I'm going to take it all. And I'm like, no way, Jose, that ain't happening. We made it through the rest of that flight with both our arms on the armrest, and not even like in a cuddly way, separate. This is why I'm a hermit, says Ben Coons. Ben Coons, he's so funny. That's true. Yeah, just stay home. I get that too. Yeah. I like the end seat. Yeah, I'm an aisle seat guy, Braxall. For the most part on shorter flights. If it's a long ass flight and I'm going to want to sleep, if it's an overnight or red eye or something, I'm going to the UK. And, unfortunately, I've ended up in coach or something. Window seat. Gonna do the window. Go to pee, get ready for, hibernation, all that before I sit down. And I'm gonna sit there and maybe eat the meal, maybe not even. And then shades, AirPods, pillow. I'm over to that window and I'm out. I'm not gonna bother you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is true too. My knees hurt. These kinds of things are why I avoid humans. Yeah, I'm scared of people. Generally, yeah, in many ways. Yeah, I'm generally scared of human beings. I'm afraid of them. Just like cats, really. But wouldn't it be great if the plane was full of cats? Oh, yeah, love it. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Jim Jeffries has a great bit on airport. Oh, I want to see that on airplane seat adequate. I want to see that. Um, yeah. Okay. I like sitting in the front of the plane. The pilot wasn't too happy last time. Well, I don't have to sit right in the front, but I do like those seats that are real close to the captain. The ones that are just like behind, they're just bigger for whatever reason. Um, I tend to like those seats. I like to sit up front, a little closer to the captain. That's definitely got vanilla shit in it. Ugh. Don't give me vanilla. I don't like any of that flavor stuff. I like a nice oat milk iced latte, medium roast coffee, please. Delicious. That's my jam these days. They were probably Americans and not Canadians. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know about that, but anyways, okay. Are you excited about the Line 6 Helix Native Stadium plugin? I actually saw that came out, and I do want to try it. Yeah, I do want to give it a go. Got to do that. This is one of those things that I should have time for this month, the month of August, for sure. Yeah. I always put my carry-on where I can watch as much as possible. I had a bag disappear on my way back to NAM back in the day. Is that right? That'll make you, like, there you go, the life experience that definitely clues you into. Yeah, I was shocked somebody picked up my bag and moved it to the other side of the aisle in a different bin. It's one thing if you, where is it? Oh, they moved it around to make space. But somebody actually thought, I'll just take this and put it over here. And that was, when I had this guy, it pissed me off. I was really shocked that somebody had done that. You shouldn't, you should, a general protocol for that, I've seen people do it a million times, is like, this red bag here, does this belong to anybody right here, or whatever, is it okay if I just, just ask permission, somebody would be like, oh yeah, it's fine. I'm just going to, over here, all good. If you're touching other people's stuff, don't ever touch other people's stuff and move it. Like, you shouldn't do that. Flight attendant, they can do that, obviously, but they're generally going to ask people too. So, flight attendants often rearrange overheads. Yeah, I see them do it, but I don't see them. I guess that's possible that, totally possible one did that, but I didn't spot it, that's what it was. Because generally they'll ask, or tell you. Okay. Tell us about your experience with Wampler pedal head. So it's great. Thought maybe I had it sitting right here, but I don't. It's in here somewhere close by. It's really, really good. And, it's even, I've got a prototype that's really good, but they've added a couple things now and it's even better. So it's, smashingly good. It's just great tone, first of all. The IR Load Plus is also coming out. The collaboration between Dave and I got a new version of it sitting right here, and it's friggin' fantastic. And there's nothing like it. So if you want all the things that this thing does in a box, this is the one in the world. There's no other one that does everything that it does. With a power amp, the machine learning power amp is completely unique. Nothing does that. The load is a proper, 3-stage reactive load that sounds amazing. And the ability to load IRs, have those on the XLRs, and the version of it now. I'm going to tell you, it's like you can get like it's if there is a difference between the amp plugged in to the cabinet directly and then the amp loaded down and going through the power amp and into the cabinet. If there is a difference, it's so minuscule, or it's you can make it sound exactly the same basically to me, or you can make it sound even better. You can actually enhance your amp. That was what was amazing to me, is that it's like you could voice the power amp to be even better than your amp might sound a little, sounds a little flat, or, yeah, it sounds really good, but you get a 50-watt old Plexi or something, because that's what we were testing this particular day with. It sounded great. And I was like, okay, but if I turn the knobs like this, watch this, and I turn the reactance and then a little presence, and it's just like, that sounds better than the amp direct. Because the way that we've been testing it, just is on a switcher that allows me to go, we can go directly from the amp right into the cabinet, or then go loaded down through the boom, loaded down and through the power amp of the IR load into the cabinet. We hooked up a switching, Dave's smart with stuff like that, so we hooked up a way to switch back and forth and really test it. And I was like, I think I like it. Check this out. Like, it's actually enhanced. It sounds better getting reamped. And then of course you can get that sound at any volume. It's amazing. So you can actually enhance your tone with it in ways. Yeah, pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Do you know which Sura speaker cabinet will be compatible with the new future PT15? I think you mean PT50. Because we'll still have the 15, and it'll be the same. But I have currently have the PT15 vertical 212 50-watt cabinet. Well, you'd be able to use the current PT15 cabinet with the new amplifier, as long as you're not playing at absolute crazy or splitting volumes. It's going to be a 50-watt head, and that's you'd be fine with the cabinet you have, as long as you're not cranking it on 10 all the time and pushing it into, a higher power than what that cabinet is, because we don't know what we're going to have to wait till we've got a living, breathing one right here, but sure, one could argue, I suppose, peak PT50 might put out 70 watts or something like that if it's 50 watts RMS, at which point you might want to have two speakers that are, I'd probably replace them with 875 creambacks or something, the ones in that cabinet. But anyway, long story short, you're good with that cabinet, the one you have. Yeah. But you're saying getting ready to purchase another cabinet. Well, if you want another cabinet that's different and really cool, and you want to stick with the Sir cabinets, get our horizontal one that's got the two H75 creambacks that I just mentioned, because it'll sound amazing with the PT50. We're not going to change I don't think we're going to have a new cabinet or anything like that. That 212, that's slightly oversized, a little deeper, it's more like 412 depth, is an awesome sounding cabinet. So I would go that way. Yeah. Yeah, the one that sort of, pairs with the current PT100. Yeah, there's a super chat there I got to grab. Do that in just a sec. Yeah. Talking about SGs and stuff here. I want a 62 SG special with two P90s. I've never heard another quite like it. Growl with Sparkle. I love those guitars, man. Jim from Scumbag had one that we were talking about. I was talking about maybe doing a deal buying, but that never happened. I mean, maybe it'll still happen someday. That guitar is lovely. The neck on them, if it's that wide, thin, flat thing, which, sounds almost like Shredder, and it kind of is, but if the way Gibson did them back then, it's a little like my 335, early 60s, wide, flat, and with the P90s. They're killer guitars. I love SJ Specials. Really, really good. You can see me playing Jims in the video I did like 15 years ago or something for the SL68. I used it in there playing like the Cult on it or something, like some riffs. It's a really good sounding guitar. Yeah. And his was modded with a Tune-o-matic, I think. That's my memory of it, is that it's got a stop tail and Tune-o-matic instead of the old, stop bar bridge. The SG neck pickup is located significantly closer to the bridge than Les Paul. Some of the early ones, I think, didn't they have it further apart? I think, and then they changed that because it weakens the neck, because it's cutting into the pocket there where the tendon is and everything. So, and certainly on the reissues and stuff, you see the pickup in a different place. So I think there's some that are different, but yeah. Will you be playing any gigs between now and CRS? Have you got the rest of your gig free? I got some one-offs, just one-off stuff. I should mention I'm doing these rock and roll fantasy camp things. So that's one thing that I'm doing in the fall. There's one that is kind of Van Halen Rat themed that Warren DiMartini and Michael Anthony, Kenny Aronoff, Brad Gillis, they're all doing it. And I'm one of the counselors on that. So that should be really fun. So check out the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp website for info on this. And then there's another one that's Seattle themed that's I'm also doing. That is Kim Thale and Jerry Cantrell. It's gonna be cool. So, and that one's actually happening in Seattle. So the LA ones, or the 80s rock one is in LA. So I got those two things going on. Gonna probably announce some clinics here pretty soon. Um, there's something that's gonna happen at Sweetwater. That's more just like a hang meet and greet kind of informal thing. Uh, and then some other ones that I've got coming up that they're coming up kind of fast here, so I got to get it together. But it's not that fast; still 3 months away or something like that. But we'll get together the promo for them and let you guys know where they're going to be. And then gigs, yeah, just a couple. I've got a gig in Kentucky with Five for Fighting in September, and then there's a couple other things, that are happening. But I really got to get like I wanted to get a record done. So and then I've got a shit ton of videos and stuff to do in this room for people. I've got a Strymon Timeline MX that's sitting here on the desk that's staring at me. Finish the video on me. So that'll happen eventually here. Yeah. Okay, what else? Let's see. Ben Tom says, I think people are bitching about first world problems lately. Well, we wouldn't be human beings if we didn't do that. I mean, you know, kind of whine a little bit, right? What did Joe Walsh say? I can't complain, but sometimes I still do. Yeah. Okay. Looking through the comments here. I'm going to move down kind of quickly here through some of these, but nothing about that D'Addario video made me want to buy their strings. Yeah, I mean, that would be my, just my subtle criticism toward. I like D'Addario. They're good people. I don't, I'm an Ernie Ball guy, an Ernie Ball endorser. But I like D'Addario. I like their strings, and I like they make a lot of great products in all kinds of different sectors. They do all kinds of terrific accessories and things like that for guitar players. It's a good company. Just my argument would be just maybe do things that sound more like guitar. Since it's a guitar string ad or whatever. It's a hard thing to advertise a guitar string. I mean, they're trying to do something that sounds exciting, connects with younger players and all that. I get it. It was like genre specific, but so I gotta, take it all with a grain of salt what I say too, because I also recognize, if you're a little older or whatever, and it could be that, well, this doesn't sound like music, and that's what my grandmother used to say to me about the music I was into. So there's a little bit of that involved, but also if it just sounds like, if you can't tell if a computer made it or whatever, it doesn't really. Just do things that are. Here's the other thing, I always say this, and if you don't, that's okay, I guess. But I mean, one thing I do in my videos and have done since day one is I'm not faking it. Like every take you see me do in one of my videos is me playing that take. It's not me doing a playthrough, where it's like I recorded it and then I'm, making a video of the parts that, no, it's like me actually doing the actual friggin' take. Hopefully you can tell, that I make a big point about that. There's been, caveat, there's maybe been 12 times in the history of me doing videos or something where something happened to the it was either, the part or, I can remember a couple times where like I didn't record it. Shit, I forgot to turn on the camera, and it'd be an incidental part. If it was ever the main part in the song or something, I would never do this. But if it was like an arpeggio that I'm playing on or some, the main part, and it was like, 4 bars long or something. There's been a couple of those where I can remember like over the years, I forgot to turn the damn camera on. I'm like, oh, but I would have recorded the part. I'm like, I'll just film myself playing the part, and then it'll be part of the mix of the song, and it doesn't matter. It's not. If it was a primary part in the song or something that you were going to hear me do soloed outside of the mix, like I always say in my videos, no way would I do that. I'd be like, no, I got to go back and do it again, film it, because that's going to be obvious, and that's just not the way I would do it. Literally, I probably did that like, yeah, maybe 10 times over the years of doing this for however long. Other than that, you're watching me do it in the video. I mean, this is 99.98% of the time. It's always that take of me playing the part and doing it. And I take pride in that. And it makes it fun because you're seeing me play the damn guitar. That's the point. So just do stuff that's that, I think, yeah. I don't know. That's just me, I love Jesse Wells. Saw him earlier this year live. I'd love to see him live. It hasn't, stars haven't aligned where I've been able to do that yet, but hopefully soon, Yeah. What do you think of, and I saw Engine de Poitrine. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I think it's awesome. There's a blast. I mean, it's just like organic, microtonal, how interesting, and the fact that people are digging on it, the visual, the whole 9 yards is really cool, I love that Jack White kind of embraced it too, and it's like, because obviously he gets that, like the power of the couple people playing together and just, connecting on their cool, weird music and the aesthetic, because that was something that he talks about in It Might Get Loud, where it was like, the red and white of White Stripes and stuff like that, and the shirts and he saw the the candies that you see in the jar coming out of restaurants that were with the red and white swirls on them, and he's like, that'll be on the bass drum. The whole red and white thing. I love all that fun, the vision of a band stuff, and then executing it. And so I love that the Engine de Poitrine guys do that too. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I think I am. Don't forget to like that smash button. Yeah, smash that like button, like that smash button. Hit the like, hit the thumbs up, if you will. Spread the video far and wide, because we got 266 people online. It's nice to have you here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, what else we got? What else? What else? What else? Yeah. Somebody says, oh, it's Bad Tom says, Rush are good, but I was never a huge Rush fan. Fair enough. You don't have to like everything, He said, I can't, well, that's a lot of people say, I can't deal with Geddy's voice. I love it. I can't imagine it to be any different. It's just, it's like Billy Corgan's voice, or, it's like a unique voice in rock. You know who it is right away. But yeah, I recognize that. I was like that for ages with Neil Young, and then I grew to love it. I was like, oh my God, it's amazing, So, it's art, so it's not for everybody. It's great they're reviving it all with Annika and Lauren. Also nice to bring in younger fans. Yeah, like that's the other thing about about Annika, and it's just opens it up to more women and more girls and younger fans that are more hip to what she's doing all across the board. It's just like, it's awesome, I love it. I love the female musicians breaking down barriers too. So to get to the point where it doesn't matter if you're if you're a guy or a girl, doesn't matter. Just a musician playing. Drums has been one of those ones that's been, I always find that fascinating with instruments. Like violin there's been amazing female violinists forever that are super prominent in the field, amazing, pianists and amazing, like all kinds of musicians, but for whatever reason, guitar took a long time. Now there's incredible women out there forefront, blowing everybody's minds, and drums, it's like awesome. It's what better thing for that could be a woman stepping into the shoes of this iconic drummer that's like impossible to replace, and kind of doing an amazing job, like bang up job. That's like, wow. Could anybody have done better? I don't think so. She's the perfect choice. So, it's really rad. She's got this feel that's like, it's like sometimes she does this with her when she's playing 2 and 4, where she's laying into it. You can see Getty like grooving with her sometimes. Neil never did that. It's a different thing. It's like he was more like the professor. And he played drums like that. And that's part of his brilliance. He was amazing. So she's doing this different thing. That's her bringing her own thing to the parts. And it's different, but it works. So that's interesting. That it's not, 'cause sometimes things are different and they don't work. I'll give you an example with drums specifically. When I go back and I watch The Who with Kenny Jones, great drummer, uh, it just to me was too different. Like when I go back and I listen to it now, I liked it back in the day more when I was a kid, because around the time that he was playing drums and making records with them, You Better You Bet was like current single, awesome. But the way he would use the hi-hat in ways that Keith Moon just never did, like Keith Moon being way more bombastic, and he'd just play like tight on the hat sometimes. And that when I go back and listen to it now, I'm like, that doesn't really sound like the right aesthetic for the song. It just would bother me a little bit when I hear it now. So anyways, would like to hear a new Rush album with Annika and Lauren. Yeah, me too. To hear tunes interpreted, get in the studio and come up with some new stuff, that'd be really fun to me. Yeah. Ben Tom's taking off to go watch the Phillies game. See you, man. Take it easy. Enjoy. He also says I need to get contacts, but I got to fix the giant hole in my roof first and the deck that was destroyed by the storm. Well, that's not fun. Yeah, but take care of your eyes, because you don't want to get, you won't be able to see that hole in the roof if you yeah, you got to good contacts and stuff are important to, so that you don't damage your corneas and stuff like that. I'm just saying, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. That's part of your health. So yeah. Okay. Good to see you and hear your stories. Thank you, and nice to have you here. I'm so glad that you're here today. Thank you. What's this? Todd says this could be all BS, but maybe Getty and Alex having more fun because the band isn't so stiff or rigid time-wise. Well, I definitely think that there's look, sometimes these things happen, and then these like the uncomfortable reality that comes out of it is there's just something interesting that happens with this chemistry. I hate to, like if I'll give you another example of when Glenn Fry passed away. Amazing founding member, really the primary member founding of the Eagles, right? But him and Don were always a little, I think later once they made Amends, got back together, they were great partners, and they, worked well together in those later years to, carry on the legacy of that band and do things and stuff. But it was all a little, kind of serious and stuff. And then I think something happened when Glenn passed away. I think there was an element of like, can this even work anymore? Should we ever go tour again? And then they went out and started touring again. And from what I know of it, they made a fantastic choice, obviously getting Glenn's son to come out, and Vince Gill, of course, and just celebrate the music, but doing it, I from what I know, there was less pressure, there was less tension. And that's probably why you saw them then working a lot and continuing to book things, and then do things, because it was like I've never, it's not like I've spoken to Don about this, but from my assumptions I'm making and stuff like that, from things I've heard, and the situation is just that it's going well. People were still buying tickets, coming to the shows, and there was less tension. So that was the result, of it's terrible. I feel awful about the way that Glenn passed away, actually, and that was because it was very sudden. It's one of those things where he had a medical procedure, I think, and then it just didn't go right, and then this is what happens, and so that was terrible. It seemed like he went way too, like, he was one of those guys, a little like Jeff Beck, where it's like, what, like, he seemed fine, like, and then they're gone. This is terrible, but yeah, out of that, the unfortunate situation, and then it carries on. And it's like, well, the band carried on and did things, and people seemed okay with it live. Vince, obviously, an amazing musician. So they went on and honored it in the right way. I think with the way that they did it, I have to say, and I think that's what Rush is doing. They're honoring it in the right way. Going out and playing it out of the, you know, terrible, unfortunate, what happened to Neil, and you go out and do it. And we're all human beings. We all recognize that. It's not forever. We're here for a limited time. We're only immortal for a limited time. That's right, for you Rush geeks out there. Okay. Yeah. It's awesome. You can see them again. I haven't seen any Rush since Roll the Bones. Yeah, I saw them at some point around 2012, I think, and that was the last time that I got to catch them. I believe it was Hollywood Bowl. It's strange. I don't have a hell of a lot of memory of that show. I had to think about it for. I was like, oh yeah, I did see Rush again, like however long ago. But yeah, it's not a super prominent memory for me for whatever reason. Maybe it took, all the tragedy and things like that for me to clue in and go, wake up. I sort of feel like that about Van Halen. I mean, it's like when I was at the last Van Halen show at the Hollywood Bowl. I never thought it'd be the last Van Halen show. Eddie was top form. He looked so healthy, and he was playing great that night, and it was awesome. And then after that, after 2015, just wasn't too long till things were going, downhill for him hardcore. I mean, I knew he was touch and go over the years for sure with health, and it was always, he was fighting a battle, for 20 years, but he just looked so good at the end that, what didn't occur to me, oh, this is going to be the last show. And sure enough, so anyways. Okay. What else we got here? Let's see. Bring back box PA systems, says Pantone. Yeah, I agree. I love the old, and music like smells can instantly transport you to a previous memory. Yeah, it's amazing. I love it. It's incredible. That whole, like. Actually, I went back recently, started listening to Rush albums that before I went to go see them. I listened to, like, Presto and stuff, and Hold Your Fire, and these records I hadn't listened to in years, and I know them all. Like, I know every note. I just haven't listened to them in that many years. So I'd listen to them when they came out. And then, like, at some point, a few years later, you stop, and then you don't hear the songs on the radio so much because they weren't those, other than Time Stand Still and stuff, or whatever was a hit single. You don't hear them as much over the years. But when I go back and listen, I'm like, oh, it's boom. It's just like that neural pathway that gets activated again of the lyrics and the notes and the melodies, and you know where it's going, and you're like, oh, I forgot about this song. It's so cool. Like, I was like that with the song Mystic Rhythms. I was like, oh, I love this song. I was in Carmel recently, like, and had that record on while I was, driving Highway 1 and stuff up through Monterey and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is great right now. Like, hearing that record, on that day, and getting into it, So, okay. I'm pretty far back in the chat, so let's move way the hell down here. And what time is it right now? It's 1:30. Okay, so I'll go another half hour or so, and then I'll split. Some super chats. There's Arthur. Happy Coffee Funding Day. Thank you, man. Can you show what your recording setup is? Are you using any outboard? I mean, I'm not using any. It's my mess of a patch bay right now and everything because of the way I've got things patched. But I'll just take a shot here, and you can see what my little rack is. There's cables all over the place and stuff because there always is. Sorry in advance. That's a new phrase that I love. Okay, so here's the rack that's off to the one side of me. Sorry once again for the cables and stuff on my messy desk. But so at the top is a tri-stereo chorus, which I'll still use sometimes. That's a full tone, that 80s rack chorus tri-stereo. It sounds amazing. To be fair, I mean, plugins are amazing these days. The H9 tri-stereo is amazing. Most of the time, I probably just use that. But there's every now and then where I get, a hankering to like, the PT15 line out into that or something, and then into a couple tracks, or I could do it easily with the Soldano X88 IR, and that would be cool. Okay, below that, it's hard to tell. The color didn't really come through, but it's a Geddy Lee bass preamp. So one of those, what do they call it? The GED2 or GED 2112. It's actually, how did I miss that? GED 2112. So I've got that on my patch bay, which you'll see in the next shot here. Shows up. It's got the preamp has a weird combination of controls here. So there's this channel here of all these controls, which is basically it's got like a 3-band EQ with a parametric mid, and it's kind of like a gain control, mid shift, bass, treble, and level. And then there's a blend control that lets you go between a completely DI sound and then this channel, which is kind of like an ampy channel with distortion. It's got a fair amount of drive. You can, by the time that gain control there is up to 10 or 11 o'clock, you're getting a fair amount of grind out of it. So that's the kind of grindy channel. And then these two controls right here are labeled saturation and level 2. And what those are kind of another amp channel. So it's a weird sort of set of controls. So you've almost got like an amp channel on one side that you blend with a DI, and then the other side is an amp channel. It's almost like blending the two of them together. And it sounds like a big, fat, nice, perfect amp sound. You can't EQ it. It's just a volume and a saturation control. And the saturation control doesn't get as dirty as the other side. It's more like, when you crank up a B15 or an SVT even, and they start running out of power and they distort a little bit, it sounds like that, like a bass amp that's just getting into a little bit of saturation that's basically still clean. And that's the main sound, is those two controls. That's the main Geddy sound, is, as I understand it, is that side is his core sort of tone, and then the other side is blended. It's almost like blending distortion on top of a core amp sound for bass. So this is almost like, if you had like the old Chris Squire SVT and Marshall together with the guitar amp, bi-amped or whatever for the high end. This side is the clean, pure bass amp side, most of the tone, and then this side is high end distortion, maybe some DI blended in. So they show up as two different XLR outputs on the back of the preamp. And I take both those out into my patch bay, and then I can use just one or both. And I usually use both, and I print both tracks, and then I'll blend them when I'm mixing. I don't always use this, but I use it quite a bit. I think it's a great direct bass preamp. It's supposed to have been Geddy's main thing for, many years. And then you can see I got an Axe-Fx there and a Helix, the first gen Helix. Okay, so here's my other messy picture I'm going to show you. It's just patch bay cables going all over the place, but so it looks like shit. Let me try and clear some of these cables out of the way so you can get a better. Sometimes what I do is I just plug patch cables in to empty jacks on the patch bay, and then I just drape them over because I don't have like a cable. There, that looks better. I don't have like a cable, one of those hangers. I got to get one of those in here where you hang up 1/4 inches and patch bay cables and stuff like that, and mic cables. I have cables wrapped up in drawers. It doesn't really work. I need to put. Actually, I could put one up maybe like over here on this panel on the side. But okay. So there's all my other outboard. So there's a power conditioner at the top that a bunch of stuff is plugged into. A bunch of that gear is plugged into. AC and stuff. Then you can see my old Universal Audio 6176 underneath that. That was my first good mic pre and compressor. It's basically an 1176 and a 610 mic pre in one rack housing. And then you can see there's a dual channel API underneath that. That's 2 channels of 312 style mic pre. Use those a lot over the years for recording, 2 mics on a guitar cab. And below that is my Neve style pre's. That's a BAE 1073 MP with the Steve Stevens mod, which means it's got summing on it. So I can take both the outputs two microphones and blend them to one track. And then below are my two UA interfaces, which are a X8P and an old 8P. And they're networked together. I really only use the X8P. The 8P is there merely for the power of the, like it's got DSP in it. So if I'm running the old school UAD plugins that work off the DSP in their interfaces, I can, if I'm doing a, sometimes complex mix, sometimes you need more juice to run all those plugins. And so it'll kick over to the 8P and use its cores. So that's why I've got them networked. But if I wanted to, I could use all the pre's. I could actually have 16 mic pre's or 16 inputs that I was recording at once with the, analog ins, with those two networked. So that's kind of it. That's what I use, So it's basically everything else that I'll use for effects and everything's plugins. I don't have any other, there's no H3000 in here or anything like that, or SPX 90 or something that I'm using for plugins or for outboard effects or anything like that. But I use the mic pre's and the sometimes outboard compression. I should show you this too. I've got a little 500 series rack over here with some stuff in it. It's got a couple other pre's like a Maris, the one on the end there. It's a 440. Used that a lot over the years. Beside that is a DBX mic pre that I'm actually using right now, I think. Check. Yeah, I am running through it with this microphone. So it's just this. I've been using it as my Sunday Live SM7 mic pre for a long time. And then besides that is a, what is it, the 560A, which is the old DBX compressor. I've used it a little bit to record bass and stuff. It's a classic, It's like an old 160 or whatever, 166 or whatever the heck they were called. Beside that is a Maris Reverb, Mercury 7. I don't really use it because it's mono. You need to have two to kind of link together. But it's very cool. It's awesome. And then there's a Warm Audio mic pre in there that's sort of like an API as well. On top of there is a bass preamp that a friend of mine made years ago that I've used a little bit to go direct with. Yep. Okay. Let's see. What else? What else we got here? The PT15 cab with green back and black back is my favorite cab. Did you change one speaker? Has edged out the Marshall 410 I've been using for 35 years. Man, so you put a black back in one. That's awesome. I would love to do that, actually. The way they come is with a V30, which is cool, but I'd love to have a little one with that's a good idea, like a greenback and then an old school real deal blackback could be pretty cool. Or maybe you put one of those new ones in it. Okay. What else? I'm a pilot by trade. Carry on with you if you can. Get clear global pre-check. I agree with all of this right off the bat. And when airlining, be ready to make alternative travel plans these days just in case. Good stuff. Yeah, I agree with all that. The only thing I don't do is with instruments, I don't carry on because I don't like the hassle. But I recognize I'm taking a risk, instrument getting lost, not making it to my destination, all that stuff. I've decided that's worth it for, it's like I always backline a guitar. Like, let's say I'm going to do a Fight for Fighting gig. I'll backline a Strat, American Standard, whatever. And then I'll bring a guitar. And probably that other guitar never gets played on the gig. But if I got to the gig and my guitar hadn't made it on the flight and was getting delayed till the next day, I could always have the Strat there to play. I'd get through the gig. And I've decided that's better than dealing with carrying a gig bag and trying to, because of this kind of stuff, people moving stuff in the overheads. And then, sometimes the gate agent doesn't want to let you down the ramp, even though TSA rules and everything say that, that airlines are supposed to let musicians fly with guitars. Sometimes airlines say, well, that's not our policy, and they don't care. And so it's like I just got around all that years ago by getting SKB I-Series road case or the Gator cases, and, putting it under the plane. So that I do. But I try and take a carry-on bag only when I'm traveling. Like this was a week, so I can do a week with a carry-on, no problem. As long as, it's not like, I'm going through a bunch of different weather. If one place you're going is snow, the next place you're going is like 70 degrees out, then I find it really difficult to only take a carry-on in a small bag because you got to pack different clothes and shoes and stuff. But if I can go for, yeah, I can generally go 7 or 8 days, which is what the trip I just did is with just a carry-on. And then it's definitely simplifies, you're flying through airports. I had a 58-minute connection the other day, pretty short connection. I always recommend to, if you've got under an hour, carry-on's a better bet just in case your bag doesn't make you don't want to get to the other end and not have your bag. Definitely going. I mean, coming home, I don't really care if, your bag didn't make it. We'll deliver it to you later tonight or whatever. I guess that's fine. But, yeah. I always remember doing the Chris Cornell tour for the album cycle in 2007, the first one we did, and we got to London Heathrow we were starting. We'd already been out on the road for a few months, but went home for a little break, came out again, flying to Europe through Heathrow, going to Belgium. Was the beginning of the tour in Europe, and so we changed planes in Belgium. Got there. I got my suitcase, but I had flown a new pedalboard out that was like $5,000 to get made. It didn't show. And our whole touring party, crew and band, nobody's stuff showed except for maybe like 8 of the bags or something. One of them was my main suitcase that showed up. So at least I had that. But a lot of the people didn't get any of their stuff. And that stuff never got back to us for a couple of months. It was a computer flaw at Heathrow. It made the news. And I saw a photograph of actually what happened that day and all the bags. There was an airplane hangar full of suitcases. It was absolutely massive and just an endless rows of bags that they had to somehow get through and sort through and get back to people because the computers crashed or something. Nobody knew which bags were supposed to go where, and nothing made it anywhere. So it was this epic disaster. And a couple of our guys never got their bags. They just, all their stuff, their suitcases imagine like going out for a 2-month tour and how much, everybody had big suitcases. So it was a nightmare. My pedalboard eventually showed up at the bass player's house. So we filed so many bag claims, that stuff got crossed in our reservations and stuff. And so my pedalboard ended up at Corey's place. Thank God I finally got it back. And thank God I had another pedalboard out on that tour. Like my old one was actually still out. This was a brand new one I'd made. But anyway, the album was called Carry On. Carry On. So it became the Carry On tour. was the joke after that, and we learned our lesson. When you can carry on, carry on. Definitely better. Okay, if you're starting from scratch in Logic, how would you go about learning it from day one? I've got a good recommendation for that, which is, I don't know about now because it's been a long time since I bought Logic, but back in the day, it used to come with a sample sort of session that you could get in and open up and, a bunch of tracks and things, it was just some generic song. And you could kind of work through it and learn about the workflow and stuff like that, how to, edit and how to move things around. And I recommend doing that. If there's got to be an equivalent because they've only come further and made it easier. And so, if you buy Logic, you download it, there's got to be some sort of sample session or something that comes with and whatever sort of instruction that it comes with. To kind of work through, and do that, because I don't recommend doing creative things and doing sort of analytical learning things at the same time. People end up getting frustrated using the two sides of their brain, trying to do both things at once, come up with melodies or whatever. Okay, let's go, let's record. And then how do I arm a track? Oh, damn it. You've forgotten the melody already, So use the sort of BS piece of music to do all your learning, and maybe put in 45 minutes or an hour for a few mornings into that, and you'll have the basics of how to make a session or build. It'd be like, oh, I'm starting to get the workflow of this, and I know where things are good enough to start doing some work. So that's what I recommend. Use the sample session that they probably still give you, I'm going to assume. So there's another resource. This woman that is on Instagram, and she's got logic courses. She's probably also on YouTube for sure. Let me find her name here. Yeah, her name is Sabrina Seedman. She's got 241,000 followers on Instagram. You'll find her. She's a logic expert and knows how to do everything. Uh, her Instagram looks like this. Sabrina Seedman. So look her up. She's got a whole bunch of logic courses where she walks you through how to do things. She's pretty great. She's a little self-promoting and stuff. Like there's an aspect to her thing that sometimes I'm like, dial back the self-promotion sometimes, but I'm not. Whatever. She's got her own way of going at all that. And we all do. She's at the end of the day, she's really, really smart, and she knows a lot about logic. So she maybe check out her logic courses. And I'm sure she's got a beginner logic course that'll take you from nothing, and teach you probably quite a bit in a short period of time. I'll recommend her. Okay. Richard says, grateful today. I'm catching the show from home and in the hospital, still waking. So from home and in the hospital, still waiting for answers, feeling a little better every day. That's right. I remember. So, but I'm still confused. Are you home or are you in the hospital? Anyway, no matter what, we wish you well. And I'm glad that you're feeling better every day. That's good. Good sign. Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Well wishes from a bunch of folks here. Mineral Slim. What do I think about the Bogner Shiva? I don't really have its perspective on that amp. To be fair, I got one once. I was playing with Jewel, and I remember we had to do a morning TV. I think it was Good Morning America, actually, in New York, and I had one sent out because I thought these are supposed to be pretty good. Distortion channel, clean channel, that's all I need. I had to use a rental amp for this particular show, and it did not sound good, and I think it was broken. So to be fair, it sounded so bad, I think it was broken. So, yeah. So I don't have a perspective on it. I know people used to like them. I know Rafael Moreira, he used to use that as his main amp. The one I had must have been not great. Ben Tom says he likes them. It sounded broken. Like a tube was weird or something. Like I remember just the clean channel. It was like spitty or something. It was weird. Like something's wrong. So that was the only time I tried one. And to be fair, I guess this can happen, but you rent one once and then that happens. You're like, never again. That's probably what I did because I just was like, I need something more reliable. But that's selling it short. It could have been just a tube thing or something like that. It's a tube amp after all, and that's what usually goes wrong. Yeah. Yep. I've had other Bogners. I mean, the Ecstasy, I had in the 90s as well. So that was before that. This is good to hear. Matty Barado's name on the live stream you heard on my show. Thanks so much. He did an amazing job reshaping the neck of my Strat, and he installed a Pariah Pastine White. Guitar really rocks now. That's great to hear. I got to get a headstock repair done. I think I'll take it to him. He's done some pretty amazing work that he's documented online, so I think I'll get that done by him. And great to hear another, I know he's, kind of legendary, and he's done a lot of work over the years for different people. So I think he's a good resource for sure. Got to get your guitar repaired. I'm going to check it out. Any chance of getting Paul Stanley on here so we can pick his brain? Maybe eventually here I'll get back to having some guests. I probably should do that. But when in September in Kentucky? That's a fighting show. I can't remember, but I believe it's the first week. It's like 5th, 6th, 7th that I'm out, something like that. So it's pretty early in September. It's a festival of some sort, I think. If you don't see it advertised, don't quote me on that, because it could even be a private that we're doing. But I think it's a show. I think it's some sort of festival show. Yeah. I love unique, odd voices. Vince Neil and Stephen Piercy come to mind. Yeah. When people, it's them, it's always a good thing, I think. You know, a unique voice is, you know, I mean, Bob Dylan. It's like just because you're not a technically amazing singer, whatever that means, like can't sing, you know, 5 octave range or whatever, doesn't mean you're not a really compelling singer. Because you know, yeah. Okay. Yeah. What else? What else? Cookie cutter voices lose my interest quickly. Yeah, 100%. Even very technical ones. I agree. I mean, there's some out there that are amazing that were technically incredible, that were great. Freddie Mercury, right? You know, it's like, but there's some that leave me kind of just like, oh, that's amazing, but I'm not feeling it. You know, for whatever reason. It's kind of it's a funny one. You know, it's like, what is it? You know, it either makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck in a good way or it doesn't. You know. Um, Yeah. Okay. What else? What else? Moving down. I think I got a super chat I got to get to here. So I'll get to that in just one sec. I have tickets for Rush in November. Awesome. Um, cannot wait. My wife has never seen them. There's probably more women going to the show now than ever. It's pretty great. So yeah, seeing that and also all ages and everything. It's pretty great. Yeah, I love it. Um, there it is. Catch that. Thanks for the super chats today, you guys. Appreciate it. Paul Papa Andrea says, deciding on the pedalboard size. Ask about noise gate in the normal chat. RJM PBC 10. What size board did you go with? I think mine's about 30 or 32 wide, my main board, by 18. This way, you know, 18, 30 something by this way. Lately I've been using these other ones. I don't have a tape measure in here, but it's smaller. I don't know how wide this would be. It's got to be probably 28 or maybe 26 by. It's not 18. I'd say it's 16 or something this way, you know? So I use these Temple boards now. If I can, that's what I like to use. I've got a nice Pelican case for this particular size Temple board. And it's a nice size board. I'll give you an example. Let's take a quick picture. So this is a little smaller than my main board. This is the one I'm saying. It's probably, I'm making a guess here. I don't know, 25 or 26 inches by probably like 16 high, something like that. I don't know, something like that. But anyway, so that's the one size down controller from Musicom Lab, the FX 10D, which is really nice. It's got like eight loops, 10 loops. It's got 10 loops. I mean, how many loops does one need? You know, I can do almost everything with it that I can do with the bigger one. And then I've got the VP4 on there for, you know, time-based stuff. And then a compressor, a fuzz, an overdrive, or two overdrives. I'll put the Tonex on there, actually, just in case I needed to do a kind of a direct thing with the board, which I haven't yet, but it's there. It's been sitting there. It's blinking on and off at me right now. Still haven't used it, but yeah. So if you can get away, you know, you want to get away with the smallest you can, but you don't want to have everything spaced so on top of each other and kind of like too crazy, you know. You gotta balance out. You know, the guys that back in the day were designing the boards at Bradshaw and then Friedman and stuff like that. You know, they like things with space and to have easy pedal access and instant access and things like that. The old Bradshaw rigs, it was like there was no dual pages or anything like that. It was like every button did something, and that's what that button did. And that was cool in a way because it's like, you know, but these are more for, you know, top level touring guys. I saw one recently with, you know, that Dave did for John Shanks, who plays with Bon Jovi, and he's got that kind of setup where it's massive, this thing. I mean, it's up to my neck if you place the pedal board on the end, you know, of Florida. And it's these massive, but I get it because every button does something, and there's a simplicity to it that's where you don't have to page through page 1, page 2, page 3, which I do have to do on the music comps. hopefully you kind of minimize that. But anyways, you're using a PBC 10. That's a cool controller. Uh, yeah, I don't know if you can fit that on a board this size. So mine was my main board is the biggest Friedman board that they made at that point. I don't know if it's still the one or not, but it was I think 32 by 18 is my memory of it. Um, and it's really cool. People laugh at me like it's really big. I'm like, this isn't nearly like Shank's board is big, you know. This isn't that big. Anyways, uh, yeah. Okay, I saw Rush only once, 82, right before Signals was released. They called the tour Spring Training 82. That's cool. I played under release music from Signals. That's really neat. That's a unique one. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Uh, okay. Gonna split pretty soon. It's about 2. What time did I get on here? 12:10 or something, 15. Yeah, so we're almost up to the yeah, we're about an hour. I'll stick around for 2 hours fully. Yep. Uh, what else? Um, have you seen any of RJ's Rack to the Future videos? He's going full old rack gear setup. That's cool. Real tri-chorus PCM. That's fun. I gotta watch that. He's great. I haven't seen those, but I should watch. Um, there's been a little bit of that lately. I've seen some guys do that, and it's cool. You know, I think it's neat. I don't really have a hell of a lot of desire to do that right now, to be honest. I think I think Friedman would tell you this too. You know, the old rack stuff is great, but Dave's like a big VP4 fan right now. You know, and he built a rack recently for somebody that had a VP4 and 2 PCM 42s in it. So he made a preset where you could go between them. It's really hard to tell the difference between the two sounds. You know, I mean, just anecdotally on that one setting, I was like, yeah, you know, uh, there's something to these old units. I mean, I love that new Chase Bliss with the sliders that I just did the video for. That thing's got a juicy ass tone. Like, listen to the video, and it's cool with the preamp in it. You can kind of, it's almost like our load box, like I'm saying, you can kind of enhance your sound, make it better. Like, the delay is kind of like that because of the preamp in it. I feel like it could just be a little, you know, it's getting a little louder and everything too. But it's pretty cool to turn on a delay and the tone gets juicier. Like, and it's actually coming from the delay, and not just the delay effect, but from the sound of the unit. You know, has a cool thing that it does to your sound. So, and that's what people liked about a lot of that old stuff. And it really did something. You know, you turn it on and it was like, it wasn't subtle. It was like, I mean, a tri-stereo is not subtle. And the old rack unit, the one I have here, I did a video for it years ago if you want to watch it, but the full tone, that 80s rack chorus was pretty awesome. You know, so it's great. And that's one of those things where I was like, yeah, I'm going to keep this and I'm going to put it in my desk here and have it on a patch bay in case I want to use it, because it sounds, you plug it in, it's just this epic stereo thing that's like, that's awesome, you know. It's just fun sometimes to plug into real gear and not, you know, but I don't mean plugins aren't, you can't create real music with them. You can, but it's like you know what I'm saying. It's cool to get into it and the with the real old gear and stuff, and plug into it really does something. It's just fun. Yeah. Any tips for getting a better DI signal into an interface? Well, a good DI is really important. Um, Other than that, I mean, you just got to make sure it's a good, you know, Radio makes some really nice ones. You know, if you're just talking about going like recording your guitars direct, um, you could try different ones and see if you hear. I mean, there's a Neve one, you know, Rupert Neve Designs. Uh, or try, you know, just try the regular 1/4 inch input on your interface and see. There's kind of no way to do it. Maybe buy 1 or 2 DIs from Sweetwater that you can always return. That's a nice thing about, you know, and plug them in and see if. I don't really like the idea of enhancing the sound at all. I mean, essentially, I want to plug it in and have the same thing that I would get if I was just plugging right into an amp. You know, I don't want to juice it up or boost it or anything like that. I just want it to be a good, pure representation of the pickups in my guitar. So, yeah. 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 Um, Oh, it said you're holding the phone under the comments in the chat. Sorry about that. I don't know what picture it was. If you want me to show you something else again, oh, it must have been for the, I don't know, maybe it was the picture of the rack. This one. There's that one. That's just that's kind of my input side of the desk, I guess. Well, I guess both sides really are. But yeah, that's the interfaces and the mic pre's and the couple compressors and stuff like that. There you go. Okay. Patch bay made my life a lot easier. Yeah, you kind of got to have a patch bay if you get any, like if you got even this much outboard, like a couple of mic pre's, a compressor, it starts to get unwieldy to not have a patch bay. Maybe you got a modeler or two, like the Getty Lee bass preamp, it's got two outputs on it. It's like, I'll plug right into the front of the preamp over here, like with a 1/4-inch cable. I'll go into a tuner, come out of that right into the input over here. I do that because I should mention I use a little Friedman like patch bay on my desk here. It's just one of their little. I should show you that actually. It's important to kind of. It just really does a couple different things. Actually, I'm not even using it for. Come on, phone, piece of crap. This little guy right here it's just mounted on the side of the little thing in the middle there. It's mounted on the side of my Argosy console, and I'm running in there to then go all the way out to the input right there that my finger is touching of my amp switcher. So that goes to the amps. Basically, that's the only thing I'm using it for right now, but it also has a buffer in it, so if I wanted to, I can patch into it and then come out of it and then into that if I want to. So it's kind of this useful little patch box I have on the desk, but that lets me get all the way over to the input over there, and then that is splitting out to all the amplifiers, and I've got two outputs coming out of it, one going to my real cab in the other room through a load box here, and then another one going to surreactive load or to aux box, which is up there now. The thing actually has multiple outs on it. For some reason, one of them quit working. I don't know why. Maybe a cable, could be that a cable's faulty, but I can't get back there. It's too insane, all these amps in there, and it's like all the cable, it's like a nightmare, so I don't want to even deal with it. So I'm just using two. I had 3 wired outputs coming out to different speaker cabinets or load boxes. Now there's 2 working, so I'm using those 2 to do everything. That's all I really need anyway. So, any massive passive? No, I wish. That's a Manly, big old EQ, right? Yeah. So are the UA units only for A to D converters? The UA units, so those are my interfaces. So yeah, I mean they're basically allowing you to get signal into your computer. So yeah, A to D, but also routing and stuff because they have their own mixer. I mean, the way I'm routing this microphone right now, and then it's going out through, the streaming software or whatever to you guys is through the UA, plugged into an input on the UA, and routed to go out. They've got headphone amps in them too, right? So there's 2 headphone outs. You use it for that, and then there's also DSP in them. And the DSP run the plugins, so like the UA plugins. Now they have new native plugins as computers have gotten more. UA's model used to be a little like Pro Tools in a way, where the interfaces had DSP in them and you ran that DSP. As this was before chips were what they are now and stuff like that, and it's fast. So with UA, it was like they'd made these great plugins, but you could only use them with their interfaces because your computer processor wasn't powering the plugins, or you'd load up a 1176 plugin on a channel, right? The DSP that was running that plugin wasn't in your computer. It's not your computer's DSP. It was the DSP in the interface, and so they would have a bunch of cores, DSP in the interfaces. So I've still got all those plugins, which are great and epic sounding. They're awesome. I've got a bunch of the new UAD stuff too now, which as computer chips got more powerful, now computers crazy ability to process tons of information at once. Um, they've made what they call UADX, which is their native. It's the same plugins, but they run off your computer's DSP, so you don't need to use the. So that's their new Volt interfaces and stuff like that. And you use those with the UADX plugins that run on your computer's DSP. Their old model, I guess, kind of got a little bit somewhat obsolete. It still works and everything, but they had to kind of get with the times and make some native plugins that ran off computer DSP. So they do that as well. And then there's also kind of this cool thing with UA interfaces where they have what's called, because here's the one thing about the I'll get on to guitar stuff because I'm probably losing some of you here, but the with UA and the plugins running off of their DSP, it can slow down the you can get latency and stuff like that. So the UAD plugins, that when you're piling them on in a mix and adding especially things like Ocean Way Studios reverb and certain plugins, they just create a ton of latency. So you really only want to use them when you're mixing. But let's say you want to record their B15 amp sim, you're playing a bass part or whatever, you want to load it up, or their Tweed amp sim, and you want to load it up and record with it. Well, you can actually do it in UAD console, which is their input console program for the UAD interfaces. So let's say I plug a guitar into channel 1 over there with my 1/4-inch cable on my UA interface. Now I can open up the UAD console program, and on channel 1 there's a slot called the unison slot right at the top. And what happens there is I can load up certain plugins that work in the unison slot, like mic pre's, amp sims, things like that. And when you load a plugin there, it's minimal latency. So it uses the DSP in the UA interface, and it uses quite a bit of it in order to make for minimal latency and super fast, a couple milliseconds or whatever. And then you can track that sound right into your DAW. As though you were playing through an amp. And it's supposed to kind of recalibrate the input so that, let's say you've got a B15 there, that the input actually acts like the impedance and stuff of a real B15. Or let's say you got a 1073 mic pre pulled up on that channel, you're plugged into the XLR input with a microphone in the back. Well, it's going to make that input react and everything just like a 1073 would. That's the selling point anyway, that they sell you on with their interfaces. Yeah. What are you guys talking about? You guys are talking about cocaine in the in the chat. We're over here talking about interfaces. Yeah. Paint a picture, Chris. Would you put it up next to Jimmy on your wall? Maybe I can include you both. It's a super nice gesture. I really appreciate that. I don't know. I'm kind of weird about stuff of that era of my. Let's say it's a longer conversation than here, but but it's a very nice gesture on your part. That's for sure. That's really sweet. I mean. I just wouldn't want to promise. We'd have to have a longer conversation about it. But yeah, I have one Chris Cornell kind of. It was like a poster from a gig that was one of those kind of from the like a show at the Fillmore maybe, where they do gig posters. Those classic old looking ones. And I did have that framed and I put it up in my house. So I have that, but it's a very abstract picture. He's in it and I'm kind of in it in the corner, but you kind of can't even tell that it's us. It's like a very the way that it's done is super abstract and stuff. And I just kind of liked it, so I put that up. Yeah. What else we got here? A few more, and then I'm going to split. That's Bent Tom. My buddy has a recording studio 20 minutes from me, so I usually go there. Just have a bedroom studio here in my extra room, but it's not soundproof. I do the same thing. I work in here, but if I'm going to do drums, I'm going to go somewhere else, Or if I want to track room mics on guitar, I'm going to go somewhere else. Yeah. Do you have to pay for guitars over the cost of usual luggage fees? Sometimes. It depends on the airline. It depends on the weight, no matter what, airlines aren't generally, unless you've got, platinum elite status or whatever, they're not giving you more than a bag anyway. Usually you got to pay for every bag these days. But sometimes you get one for free. Sometimes you get one for free and then you go to two and it's like that second bag's expensive. It just depends on the airline's policy. And then oversize or overweight. So if you've got yeah, I've gotten pretty lucky recently. To be fair, to be honest, sometimes if I'm flying out to gigs, I work out, a business class seat or something like that. So in that case, then you're generally getting two bags for free. If I can fly with a suitcase and then a double guitar vault, that would be no charge. But let's say I need to bring one more thing, like a Pelican with my pedal board in it. Now it's three bags, and that third bag ends up being like $150 generally. And sometimes it's overweight, and then so. But all that ends up getting billed to the employer anyway, as just the cost of doing business. So it just depends. The answer is it depends. I guess on your ticket, the class you're flying in, the airline. Yeah, it's different every time. Oh, this is an interesting. I've actually seen, the Blue guitar, Thomas Blue. I've seen him do this. Just saw a video. Dude was saying he takes his neck off to pack the guitar and a carry-on. Maybe it was Thomas's video. He carries around a telly. And he just takes the neck off, puts the body and the neck in his guitar case. I mean, or in his suitcase. Excuse me. If you got a big suitcase, you can keep it under 50 pounds by, what's a telly going to weigh? 7, 8 pounds. It's not bad. And then he just bolts it back on. Kind of brilliant. If it's a guitar that takes that kind of thing, like neck coming on and off, well, why not? Not a bad idea. I generally need more than one guitar. That's the problem. That's why I take that vault. I did a little video on my Instagram about the Gator Vault, which is excellent. Recently, I really like it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Um. I just love that everyone in the early 2000s hated rack gear because it was so cheap. Well, there was a lot of cheap rack gear. There was like, a lot of ART, right? Remember them? Or Behringer and, you know, the Elisa stuff, which some people use. It's actually really good, like some of it. But there was a lot of expensive rack gear too. Lexicon, you know, obviously, PCM 70s and stuff and weren't cheap. SD 3000s weren't cheap. People were starting to get hip in the early 2000s to, things like 1176s and stuff. There used to be deals on stuff like that. And then all of a sudden it was like, they got really expensive pretty quick. I knew people that bought like old 1176s maybe in the early 90s for like $300, But then by early 2000s, all of a sudden, what ended up happening was, this is my memory of it anyway, digital recording came in, ADATs, D88s, everybody had one by like 93, 94. It's like, great, I can do 8 tracks. Oh, I can do 16, I can do 24, I can link 3 of them together, and they're not that much money. Why does it sound like crap? So it was like converters and stuff were really, it was 16-bit, it just didn't sound good. Everything sounded distant and out here. The late days of analog, people doing things in the late 80s sounded better than what people were recording on D88s. And D88s were better. ADATs they didn't sound good. The early, ones anyway, before they at least went 20-bit and stuff, were not great. So then everybody said, well, we got to make up for it by warming up the sound with, this real gear. Some outboard mic pre's became a big thing that nobody really talked about. I mean, nobody was talking about Neves and API. That was, they had consoles for that, and that was it. And there wasn't even 500 series back, So it was like everybody was using like, Soundcraft or Allen and Heath or something, and they were recording into a, half-inch 8-track or maybe a quarter-inch 8-track Fostex or Tascam, and getting pretty cool sounds. That's how Beck did Loser, it was like a quarter-inch 8-track. I mean, even the cassette machines were not great. I guess we can't talk about those, but the reel-to-reel Fostex and Tascam and stuff, they sounded pretty good, in the work that people were doing on those things. Even the 16-track one, I had a friend with one of those 16-track Fostex quarter inch. I mean, that's a pretty narrow tape for 16, but he did cool work on those. I remember it. And they'd have, yeah, like an Allen and Heath or Soundcraft board or something. Nobody had outboard mic pre's and stuff that was doing, there was project studios, you know? And then the 90s rolled around, is like things kind of sounded like crap on ADAT and stuff. So all of a sudden you start seeing DBX outboard mic pre's or ART or even PV had one, you know, tube mic pre's and stuff were all the rage. Cheaper tube compressors and things. Everybody was talking about tube outboard all of a sudden to warm things up and make it sound like it did 10 years ago when we were all recording analog. So, yeah. When the real problem was really like conversion and I think the, you know, bit depth and stuff like that was, you know, because digital got better sounding. It never got character, but at least it didn't sound hard or distant in the same, you know, in the same way. uh, so you know, but now where we're at is things sound pretty damn good, and with you know modeling and things like that, and like I was saying, the unison mic pre's and UA and everything, things sound pretty great without any of that old outboard. You can do a lot, you know. I totally think you could make a whole record that sounds pretty great on a UA interface with their plugins and mic pre plugins and stuff like that. Like, don't really need all this stuff anymore. It sounds really good. You can get great old school sounds that, you know, yeah. Outboard's fun though, no doubting that. Okay, splitting soon, but just checking here. Got some cheapo headphones, or cheap BT Bluetooth, I guess, headphones the other day. Came with a cord as well. Genius. When they run out of juice, plug them in. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, my AirPods, I mean, I love them. I love my AirPods. They're so good. They're the second gen ones that have the really good noise canceling and really great at a show, actually. Like if you can put them in and you use them like an active earplug, excuse me. So, AirPlug. They should be called AirPlugs because they are. But they're like a, you know, an active. Essentially, they limit at 95 dB in the transparent mode, so nothing will go above that. So if you're at a loud ass show and you're like, all right, I got to save my hearing, you can put them in. You can still hear really good. They're very nice for multiple things. I've even worn them at sound checks and things. Been like, I could play with these in. I could do a gig with these in if I was on a loud ass stage. Pretty nice. Bluetooth, but yeah, you gotta charge them up once they die. There's always that. Yeah, I'd like some of the full size ones actually. I'd like to try those. Yeah. Some good recommendations here on books and things for Logic. That's nice. This is good. David Nanmani has great books on Logic Pro. You can register the book and you get these download sessions you can load into the DAW, and that's how I learned to use it. Milton Gore says that's perfect. You know, something like that. Do that. The reality is, probably pretty quickly if you just put in, you know, you put in 4 or 5 hours of instruction time and you'll be off and running to the point where you can build a template, make a session, arm tracks, do some simple editing. You'll know how to do enough things to get to where you want to go to make some music. You just have to put in a little time. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. Richard says he's not in the hospital. He's home. That's good, man. Glad. Always better to be at home, right? Those places are, I mean, you know, I always, when I'm in a hospital, I always, luckily, the few times that I've been in a hospital, especially recently, there was a couple of things. I mean, I was in for my eye, in for something else for a minute, have been really good. I always try and treat all the people in there with the utmost of respect. And, you know, I feel for them because it's got to be a tough job, and they're there to take care of you and stuff. But yeah, it's not a nice place to be, you know. And so yeah, it'll definitely make you feel like being home's where it's at, you know. Yeah. Okay. What else? I like watching Jules reaching social media stuff. I haven't followed her at all in years. She was really funny back in the day. I had a great time touring with her. You know, it's been a long time now, but boy, I'm sure back far on the chat. Sorry, page way down now, but she was really cool. You know, back in the day, I had a good year with her. You know, I don't know if I was the exact right. Well, I mean, fine. You know, with her it was cool. It was another gig, but she was great. I had a lot of respect for her. I think Jules actually the best on her own, like playing solo, singer songwriter, storyteller, uh, without a band. Because I learned quickly, there's some artists that bands sort of restrict them. You know, like she's the kind of artist where she sing a song and then she'll stop in the middle because something funny happened or because she thought, you know, and then she'll tell a story and then go back into the song. You know, that's hard to do with a band, like that kind of stuff, or speed up and slow down, or extend a verse and tell a little story in the middle, whatever, you know, like all that kind of stuff. She does all that in a really, really engaging way. So the best way to see her, I think, almost is solo. There's a number of artists I played with that are like that are really, they seem to excel with an acoustic guitar and on their own, you know? Yeah. I love seeing Prince play like that. Like if you watch any of that where he's just playing guitar and singing. And he was doing tours, like right when he passed away, actually, he was in the middle of a tour solo piano, just playing piano and singing songs. I mean, he was great like that. Great with a band, obviously. Like definitely both great, you know? But some people seem like just better on their own. So, yeah. Guys, talking about your old rack gear, nano verb, multi-verb. Yep. I remember linking three DA88s together in the studio. Yep. Used to do it. Did both ADATs and DA8s. I always found DA88 from day one sounded better and were more reliable. It was a better format. That tape was just, you know, the sort of more like a high 8 cassette was more robust, faster rewind, and the machines would sync faster. It was just a better format. Those big VHS tapes that ADAT used were a nightmare. Yeah. Not the right, you know. The first record I ever made, we used an ADAT for extra stuff. So we did it on 24 track analog, but we striped SMPTE on track 23, locked up, you know, used one track of ADAT for SMPTE. So we had 30 tracks. Is that right? Yeah, because we had to lose two tracks, for one on the analog and one on the digital machine to do SMPTE. So I guess we had 30 tracks. So yeah, if we had like a tambourine part or maybe an extra background vocal or just something that, you know, we didn't have room for on 24 tracks, we would throw it on the ADAT. I remember going to mix and, you know, you'd okay, let's wind it back and listen again, you know, 24 track, you know, on the big Studer remote, you know, go back and then listen, be like, wait a minute, where's the tambourine? We'd look over and the ADAT would be spinning off into oblivion. So the SMPTE hadn't locked up, and then you'd have to stop the 24 track and shoot it another little bit of code, and then the ADAT would, where am I supposed to be? Rewind and like find its way back. So kind of funny. But anyways, somebody says, still have my BRC controller. I remember that. They were kind of cool. The big green button for play, right? I think. I remember those BRCs. Big remote control. Isn't that what it stood for? Of course it did. Still love reel-to-reel tape. I do too. Special place in my heart for all that old stuff. Worked in a place that had 8 DATs mixed down to ADAT. We had a monster-sized Soundcraft to work off of. Mixed down to ADAT and 8 DATs. What was the multi-track? I don't understand. What it was the multi-track? What was the multi-track machine? Still got my ADA MP1. Well, that's an old school SGX Nitro into a BB Sonic Maximizer. Thinking run into an aux stump. Yeah, you can do that. Use an aux stump for a cab sim. Sure. That's cool. Yep. Yep. Somebody says I can remember splicing my 2-inch tape with razor blade. Yeah, that's the way we used to do it, you know, like used to cut the tape. You'd and then you'd find the spot in between, you know, right before the downbeat or whatever of a part, and then take out that little piece of tape, put those two pieces together, tape it up, listen to it, and hope that it worked. It was always cool. I swear to God, there's a tape edit in uh, what's the Nirvana song? Heart Shaped Box after the guitar solo. It's a really obvious edit, actually. I can hear, but that's what a tape edit. If you did it, it's two takes spliced together. You can hear it. So you can hear it on the right before the last verse. So the and then he comes back and singing right there. But you can hear the edit. Like it just sounds like that. That sounds like a split. It's definitely an edit where they went, let's use, because we used to do that. We'd be like, you know what? I like, you'd do three takes, go back in and listen. You'd be like, I love the first half of take one, but then around the bridge, it just gets, take three's better, you know, it just gets better on the way out. We were tighter. I like how it speeds up or doesn't speed up or whatever, you know? And so you'd grab one piece and splice it together to the, you know, it was like, used to do that all the time, you know? Uh, yeah. So it's interesting, but anyways, and you had to be good to do those edits. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like a good engineer, you know. Steve Holroyd was a friend of mine. He was also my landlord for a while. He owned a house, and I rented his guest house for years. Steve was Glyn John's second engineer for many years, so he grew up in London studios and learned through that. You know, he's an old school, great English rock engineer. Um, you know, if you ever needed a guy, wasn't really a mixer, he's more like a recording engineer. If you needed a guy to record great, big, fat, proper rock and roll sounds, you know, Steve was great. You know, work on an old console, tape machines. You know, he worked on the Ball Breaker album by AC/DC. Um, did a ton of stuff over the years. I don't know. Worked with everybody. Did Meatloaf, like all kinds of stuff. Really good engineer. But I brought him up because I just remember him edit. He was maybe the first guy I saw do proper edits, you know, and kind of taught me how to do it put it in the block, and I was like, wow, blew my mind, you know. And then after that, it was like, okay, seemed normal, cool, that's awesome. I was only around for a little bit of that kind of era of recording, I guess, you know, like I um I was glad to be, you know, get into music around whenever 81, 82, whenever I started getting into it, and then by, you know, 90 or whatever, was full on recording and doing stuff and learning all the stuff that I, you know, about compression, EQ, recording levels, everything I learned in the analog era, you know. And then, you know, get a record deal, you know, mid 90s, going to make a record analog, 24 track. Made one, you know, my first record deal. We did that record all analog, and I knew what the hell was going on with it. And I'll never forget working in that studio where we made the first record. And there was the owner of the studio working in the other room. He had a little side studio, a little B room. And I went in there, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And he was like working on this little workstation and computer, you know. And he goes, "I got this thing called Pro Tools, you know, and I'm just learning it." And it, you know, the first 4-track Pro Tools setup, and he was in there editing. I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." You know, fast forward to about 6, 7 years later, I'm in the studio with 40-Foot Echo, making the 40-Foot Echo self-titled album with Jim Wirt producing, who did Incubus and a bunch of stuff. And by then, everybody was recording analog, bass and drums, and then flying it into Pro Tools and then doing the rest digital, usually, you know, guitars and stuff. That was the method for a while. Was everybody was still convinced analog was the thing, for at least for basics. So we would do guitars, bass, drums, basics, playing live, to analog, but then it all got into Pro Tools. And then there was a Pro Tools guy, and he was sitting there, a great engineer and cool guy named CJ. And by then, what was it called? The Pro Tools drum editing software, I forget now. Beat Detective. Beat Detective was out, and everybody was beat detecting stuff. And that would just take your take and move things around and tighten it all to the grid. And then you could do edits within Pro Tools. And I'll never forget the one, you know, Murray, the singer of 40-Foot Echo, was a pretty astute guy. And I'll never forget. See, like he was like he was skeptical. So what is this? Like, what are you doing? Well, we put it all in here, and then it's just like little imperfections. Then he went and pushed this button, and you could see all the waveforms go, you know, and the grid, And Murray went, "You just took the feel out. That's what you just did. You just removed the feel." Never forget it. That was the first time I saw anybody use Beat Detective, and it was like, And Jim was like, "This is the way we're doing things now. We do this." And he was like, "If we could do this with guitars, I would." Like tuning. He's like, "Man, if I could auto tune guitars. Jim was a great producer. He did a lot of great work, but to be fair, he'd have to admit it because I remember him saying he'd fully bought into that mode of working. Still believed in recording analog, still believed in bass and drums and the sounds and fat analog and all that compression. But then he wanted to pull it in, do the edits in tools and stuff, and we were good players. I mean, Rob Kurzweil, drummer on that band, was great. Did we need that? I don't. Of course not really. And nowadays, I don't know if everybody does that anymore. I think people are way more selective about it. But for a minute there, this is 2002. That was the way people were recording. Beat detecting everything. It just come out. It was like, oh, this is great. We can lock stuff to the grid, and then it's like, there was a lot of, to be fair, okay, garbage and music like that was out then. For rock, I mean, you had bands like Filter. There was a lot of stuff that was with sequenced, loopy sounding stuff going on, even in heavy music that was, I guess, punchier and stuff if everything was on the grid. It was a certain style of music that I guess benefited from that, but you know where I'm going with this. You've probably all seen the Rick Beato videos and stuff where people lambasted a little bit, and where he beat detective beat corrects Led Zeppelin and stuff, and what that does. So it's if you want to, that's why music from that era sounds the same. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I believe it to be true. Certainly took the uniqueness out of drums. The feel and made everything sound punchy and right on there, and and a little bit like like it's I don't like it. I have to say, I'd rather go for the performance and have it be a little, it wasn't. I don't think it did any favors. For other than if you were garbage, then I guess it made sense. They were great. Actually loved their music. I really do, and there was still an organic quality to it, but Butch Vig was a great producer, and they were all, knowing how to use that stuff and use it selectively and still have impact and stuff. Butch Vig was sort of like almost like a little bit of a modern day Mutt Lange, maybe, like where he was into the technology and stuff, but he still had a great handle on organic performances and stuff like that. It's like Nirvana, Nevermind. uh, Kurt always felt like it was too polished or whatever, and he liked the Albini, in utero. I really like the sound of Nevermind. I mean, I like the sound of Hysteria, so I like the sound of Back in Black. And more polished than their earlier stuff, sure, uh, but still, dirty enough, to be cool. And Hysteria, nothing dirty about it. Every note on that record's perfect. They were trying to make a rock version of Thriller, is what I heard. Like basically, where there's all killer, no filler. Every note is great. Like the whole the record is essentially perfect, but it's still like awesome. It's not like not human. So I think they achieved that. Certainly Back in Black. Certainly Hysteria. I like the sound of it. It's just I can't imagine it sounding any different. It's programmed drums and everything. It's what it is, but they still managed to make it through being pretty brilliant. There's something organic about it. It's interesting. All right, you guys. Well, I should go. I've been gabbing for forever here and fucking waxing on about everything. So okay. When you record gear demo songs using two-track drum software, how do you get more human-sounding performances? I use drum software. So are you talking about my stuff? Like, I guess you are maybe. Yeah, you are. Uh, well, a lot of the parts that are in Tune Track are not corrected. So that's interesting. It's a great question, actually, but a lot of the stuff isn't right to the grid. You can take it and actually move it around. Like, so it's like you can see that it's like sometimes I'll listen to it and go, that kick drum's late. And then I'll go in there and go, yep, sure enough, it is. And I don't like it. So there's times where I'll just pick a few notes or a fill. A lot of the MIDI grooves in the tune track stuff are not corrected, is what I'm saying. It's not all to the grid. So that's a good, maybe you didn't know that, but it's some is, but a lot of the rock packages or metal and stuff, it's not corrected, and it becomes really obvious when you get way away from the tempo that it was recorded at. So let's say there's a groove at 150 and you're like, you want to use it at 125 or 132 or something. You're like, yeah, it's the perfect groove, perfect beat, but you start hearing things that sound like really late or early, and it's like because you've slowed it down. You haven't, it's not like it's getting pitched, but you're just using it at a different tempo, and then you can hear, like, because the drummer, the faster that you play, the more sort of little inconsistencies can be in there, but you won't hear it. As soon as you slow it way down, if something's really late or really early, you hear it, and it becomes really obvious then. So that's how I do it, and I put a lot of effort into, even in gear demos and stuff, trying to make that stuff sound real. So I won't correct things mainly. Nice thing about tune now, it's like it's actually somebody went in there and played those grooves on a MIDI kit. So it's a drummer playing. Sometimes there's signature packages for certain drummers. You've actually got them playing. It's playing and it's triggering sounds. And it really sounds like real grooves because of that. Doesn't sound quite as much like a real groove as if you just had a multi-track recording of a drum kit, because you've split out the sounds and the everything, but it's very good, so um, I'm going to assume most drum programs are kind of like that, where it's just grooves recorded and not all beat corrected. I'm sure BFD and whatever Steven Slate drums and stuff, they don't go in and correct everything. There's like Zeppelin groove packages and stuff for Steven Slate. They don't sound all corrected. They sound fat and the whole nine yards. So that's how you do it. But also just one other thing you got to do with it is, because you're loading up a kit. And the kit loads, and you're like, what's the perfect drum kit for this? Well, it's going to load, and there's a mixer in there. And, somebody played the groove into a MIDI thing and probably had a drum that, sound up that wasn't that at all. So the way they're playing to the sound of the ride and the cymbals and stuff. Sometimes you'll load up a kit and then find the perfect groove. And what I'm getting at is the cymbal, the crash will be way too loud because it was like probably not too loud the way that they recorded it. So then you need to go in and fine tune velocities and things like that. Or maybe pick, make some different choices when it comes to mixing. You got to pull the overheads down or like do different things. And I'll go in and do all that. Like, listen to the balance of the kit and everything and get into it as deep as I can to kind of modify, what I'm getting at. And I just spend a lot of time like mixing it, and doing it kind of as I'm writing. There's Peter, dude. Thanks for the super chat. Appreciate you very much. That's nice right at the end. Thanks for the great show. Happy Sunday. Thank you. Videos this week. We'll see what I've got coming. Definitely the Timeline MX is next up here. That's the it's in my stupid pedal vise on my desk right here. People always ask about. I put up a quick clip before I went away on my little Rush pilgrimage. It's on my Instagram. You can hear it. It sounds like a delay. That's what one smartass said. But yeah, it does. It sounds like a delay. But it's a beautiful delay. Nice pedal in that it's got a great reverb in there that you can run the same time as the delay. So that's really cool. It's got some terrific. The Timeline needed, an update. Really, it's a legendary pedal. It's awesome, but they did a lot of great stuff since the Timeline, algorithms and different things, and so that's all reflected in here. There's some like spectral, that particular delay algorithm. There's a bunch of different sounds in this that you can't get in the original. A true multi-tap delay where you can control the taps. They had pattern delay in the other one, but it was some 16 set patterns or something, where you could kind of get to the multi-tap thing, but it wasn't true multi-tap where you had control over the taps. So in this you do. I mean, like you could set up a proper circular delay or whatever in here, like the old Lexicon style. So that's a lot to like. Uh, Vemoram. I got to do a video further. Los Lunas pedal, which is, of course, who grew up on Los Lunas in Pasadena? You tell me. Quiz. Quick, answer. You know who it is. Anyways, I got to do a video for that. There's a Crazy Tube Circuits box here that I got to get to, so that's coming too. All kinds of stuff, man. I don't know. I got other stuff coming, but those are three that for sure are coming. Yep. And then I got an amp coming up that I got to do that I can't tell you about yet. Good stuff like that. So some fun stuff. And I got to come up with too just a few passion project kind of videos, because those are always the most fun that just to freshen up the channel a little bit and stuff. About geeky topics and stuff like that. So you know what I'm talking about, like when I made the Eddie Van Halen pickup video and all that. I want to do a little bit of that stuff, like find a couple bangers that just good concepts. That I can put out there in the world. So, yeah. An AC30 amp, perhaps. That's not the video, no. Although we'll see. A Friedman amp. That amp, I haven't actually even tried yet, so I gotta give it a go. You saw recently I did a video for this, the Brighton treble booster from Sir. Really, really cool sounding pedal. I used Dave's old AC30 for that, actually, which is what he modeled his Friedman AC30 style amps. I think it's called the VX30 off of. So yeah, and I actually went to Dave and said, can I borrow your new AC30, because my top hat actually crapped out. I've got it here somewhere. It's outside because I got it back already, but I had tube failure on it. I put these old Russian EL84s from the 80s or something in it that were sold to me a long time ago by Terry Kilgore. And I thought, well, this is a good chance to use these tubes. The last time I retubed it, they crapped out in 6 months. It was like dead. My amp died. So now it's got JJ's in it, and it has worked fine, I'm sure. So anyway, I didn't have an AC30 to do the Brighton video with, so I said, Dave, can I borrow your new amp? And he said, I don't have one here. Take this one. And I took his old AC30 that's beautiful. So it actually ended up being better to do it probably through a real deal old AC30, just to honor the real Brian May thing and all that. But anyways, so and once again, Total Vox Nerd says middle pickup. Once again, Peter there, thanks for that. Where are you there? Thanks again for that super chat. I appreciate you, dude. You're always doing those, and you don't have to, but it's appreciated. It keeps me in the coffee around here, that's for sure. And I got to keep that going. So I'm wired. You know how it is. Yeah. This is interesting. Here's a drum plugin I've never tried. Visconti's Drumopolis SDX. Does it come with grooves? That's the biggest thing with these drum programs is it's hard to get away from TuneTrack because the workflow is so fast in a Superior Drummer for finding grooves and putting together songs. It's just so much easier than how I used to do it. I used to use Stephen Slate drums a lot, it's really good, like the sounds, and maybe it's better now. There might be a new, what I'm saying right now, don't take as the gospel, because maybe he's got a better, flow now and stuff, and a groove browser and stuff. But the tap to find thing and the sheer number of grooves that are available in TuneTrack just makes it so that I can do just about anything I need to do. When I'm doing these little videos, I can do it quickly and I can get work done and they sound good. So it's like, that's all I need, So, yeah. Occasionally I use other ones like the Butch Vig drum plugin for kind of processed crazy sounding stuff. I'll go to other things sometimes. Yeah. As always, thanks. Great week. Thank you. Thanks for being here. I do appreciate it. And yeah. Here's somebody that wants a GML 8200. That is some high-end stuff you want there, my friend. There's a mastering EQ that we used to use back in the day that was always like, ooh, with those colored knobs, and they sounded sweet. George Massenburg Labs, GML. Good stuff. Yeah. 22290s, that's nice stuff. Okay, guys. This has been awesome. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week. I'll be here, same time, same place. What'll it be next week? 16th? Yeah, I should be here. Same time, same place, sometime around noon. Maybe a little earlier, maybe a little later. Bear with me. I'm a musician. What do you want? Okay. See you guys. Thanks.